Okay, we will call to order the special town council meeting of the town of Oak Island of May 22nd, 2015. This is a special meeting. We have a resolution that we need for council to consider. It's not the budget workshop. Mr. Holloman and Mr. Hatton, I guess you two would explain what this is.
Dave may follow up. The main thing is we need to do this to try to refinance at least one of those series of bonds. So this is a step from doing that.
Okay.
So that's basically what it's a technicality we have to do, but this is one of the measures.
For the public, David, do you have a guesstimate on what the amount of interest would be that we're saving by doing this? Do you have any idea?
I don't believe I have it with me, but 1.2 million, is it?
Okay.
In the last estimate?
Yes.
I think it's like $1.2 million over the life.
That's cool. Yeah. That we're saving interest by doing
Saving
this.
interest by doing this.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution, please.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the resolution as presented.
We have a motion by Councilor Painter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Medlin. Any further discussion, please?
One question,
Please.
what are the fees associated with this?
The exact,
You know offhand?
the exact fees at this time, I don't know, but they are going to be netted on the proceeds, so we're not going to be out of any pocket money at this point. I said-
Everybody speak up. Can you hear that? Okay, everybody speak up. Talk to them, not to each other.
Right.
Any further discussion, please? If not, Chair will entertain a motion, all those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
Motion to adjourn.
By Councilor Medlin, do I have a second? By Councilor Kaiser, all those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Okay, that's that one. Now we will reconvene our budget workshop from last Friday. We still have a few things that we need to consider on the manager's recommended budget. And one of them we know is the situation with animal control. And we have a couple other things that we need to discuss about the budget, but so you guys wouldn't be bored if you weren't interested in those. May we do the animal control issue first,
We can.
please?
All right, so ready to get started? Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, in one of the discussions about the budget, we're looking at outsourcing animal control to the county sheriff's department. Dave's going to hand out some more figures. There's been a little bit of revision in possible figures, and Deputy Chief will explain that and some questions if you have for that of him. At one time, they were looking to provide services to both Oak Island and St. James. I think St. James is still considering their position in this at this time. So this would be strictly a county position responding to Oak Island. So originally the figure thrown around was about $52,000. The figure now, depending on which employee the county would absorb, would be either $55,000 or $63,000. So there's a slight change in the numbers, and the county has talked about possibly absorbing one of our animal control officers to take the duties when it goes to the county. So there could be some slight fluctuation. Even the worst case scenario would still be over $80,000 in savings to the town, depending on which position was absorbed by the county. So with that being said, we were looking at this to start July 1 and continue this fiscal year under our current operating plan. So now I guess if the board has any questions of me, and then Mr. Charlie Miller, the Chief Deputy, is here. So you can ask either one of us questions that you might have about this proposal.
Yeah, please.
I was wondering, in reading the pros and cons of the various scenarios, one of the somewhat of a downside, it seemed, was the use of the county facility, the kennels, making it more difficult for our citizens to pick up their dog if it was just a lost dog and it gets placed in a kennel. So I was just wondering about the possibility of using the kennel that we have, on Airport Road, if we were to go to this plan with the county. And, I guess there would have to be some discussion about how that would, the funding of that would work. But, I wonder,
Well, I'll start out there, and we had briefly discussed that the county would still be interested in using our facilities. They would be responsible for the maintenance and food, that kind of thing, and we would still pay the electrical bill because it's tied to the building. So I see Chief Tate shaking his head, so I think that is still.
That's correct. Do y'all want me to go to the
Yeah, please,
Yeah.
please.
Great day, all kinds of budget stuff up here. Appreciate the opportunity to come before your council today, and, you know, I just want to make it clear that we were approached by town officials to consider doing your animal services. But to answer your question, Ms. Painter, yes, we would keep it just like it is now, except either a holiday during the week or a Friday. If we have animals there and nobody had picked those up, we would take those to supply because we have care and maintenance on weekends at our shelter. So anytime that somebody would be working the next day, we would be able to house them at your facility still.
and what would our kennels be used on just a short-term basis or
Short term.
short-term?
As long as somebody's coming to work the next day
I see.
that could feed them the next morning and take care of them the next morning, yes. If it was gonna be more than that, we would take them to supply. So like today, if we had some there today, we would take them to supply this afternoon and be available to pick them up on Tuesday at our shelter.
Okay, and your shelter, I believe I understood, has a significant number of volunteers that,
Unbelievable. When we first took over 3 years ago from the county health department, it was really underfunded at the time, and the funding hadn't got a whole lot better, but what has gotten better is our volunteer force. We have over 200 volunteers there. They come in daily to help walk, bathe, do different things with our, it's amazing. It really is amazing what they're doing. They help with the adoption fairs, stuff of that nature. So it's a really good facility. Our adoption rate at the time we took over 3 years ago was around 11%. It's, I think, 46% now, Mr. Hartzler. So we take great pride in that, but, you know, it's a big team effort there.
And I'd like to note that Sheriff Ingram, he called me.
Yes, he did. And I I apologize, I bring greetings from him, but he is actually in a helicopter right now
Yes.
in Columbus County on a manhunt, so.
Ooh,
No, it's
Let
nothing
him go do
that
that.
bad. It's in Columbus County, not Brunswick County, Columbus County. So,
but he assured me that he had given orders, direct orders to the sheriff's office's animal services, that they only euthanized if there was no other option.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
it's a happy place now. They built a fenced-in dog park for the volunteers to go there and take the dogs out and play, rather than spending 24 hours a day in those kennels.
And all the stuff you see there now, the new stuff and the additions and things of that nature, the majority of it's donated funds from citizens. It's amazing what people would donate to animals.
so how are after hours and weekend
We have an
calls
officer on,
handled?
we have an officer on call 24/7. If we absorb one of your officers, that person would go into the rotation. How many, is there, Dennis, how many officers, was there eight, 5 on call? This would be 6, so, you know, they would rotate within that number of people. And they come, you know, we respond all over the county for any kind of bites or emergencies. And I think the mayor had actually sent me a question about that. She asked, let's see here. She said, is a person had to call animal control out on a Sunday night because the husband been scratched by a raccoon. Your officer came out on that Sunday to get the raccoon. If we were under contract, how would that sort of call be handled? It'd be handled the same identical way. we would have an officer respond. It may not be your officer that we've absorbed, but a animal control officer would respond to that call. Does that answer your question? Also, you want me to go on with those questions? You had another one that, talking about alligators.
I got responses from 3 separate incidents that our animal control officers relocated an alligator that had gotten like in a residential area or something, and actually moved one from out underneath the car at the food line. So those kind of calls.
I don't do alligators. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now.
She does.
Snakes, I don't. But yes, we would respond. If it was an immediate threat, we would do whatever we needed to do to remove the alligator if we had to. Our preference is to respond and wait on wildlife if it needs to be relocated. But we can
Respond what?
respond to an alligator call.
But you
So
said
we
something
would-
about wildlife, and
Yeah,
I
we
didn't.
would wait for the North Carolina wildlife
Oh,
if we
wait.
had to remove it, if it wasn't an immediate danger to someone. Because they are trained in removing them better than we are. So you had another question. Injured animals, we respond now to injured animals, anywhere in the county, so.
Possums,
Yes, ma'am.
squirrels,
Yes.
and, and rabbits, those sorts of things. Right now, if there's somebody sees a possum that's been hit, then they call our animal control officers, and we have 2 separate organizations on Oak Island. One specializes in birds and the other one specializes in small mammals, and they take them to them.
Right, and we work real close with both those organizations.
Okay.
As well as some other ones in the county.
So you would be willing, including off hours, if we had them, if we had those kind of calls,
And injured.
to allow yes.
Injured animals.
Yes, squirrels that fall out of trees, and a possum that's been hit by a car. We had an incident with a baby bunny rabbit that lost its eye because of a weed eater. And they immediately took them to these rehabbers. And the possum mama, one of them, they didn't think she was gonna live. But they left her there with her little babies, and she did live, and they're almost at the point of being releasable. We have a whole town full of people that do that volunteer that way.
We're very compassionate too when it comes to injured animals, and
Okay.
we help all the time get them to rehab places of that nature, and so yes, we would respond.
Okay. Questions,
That was
please?
all your other questions. I don't have any more.
Yeah, I sent to the council just that email, that took a long time. Kind of reviewing, I had, Tim, I was on the phone with you an hour and a half or 2 hours Wednesday, and the sheriff at least that amount of time. Said, okay, what happens here, what happens here, what if?
And let me say this, I mean, it's going to be a working, are we going to have bumps in the road? Absolutely. I'm sure we all have not thought of every issue that's going to arise, but we're easy to work with, so we'll cross some of those bumps when we get to them.
In the memorandum of understanding or the agreement that we enter into, would the town have the authority or ability to cancel the agreement if it just didn't work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had discussed a 60-day out, a yearly contract with automatic renewal, should there not be problems. But our staff attorney is going to work with your manager on that contract.
Okay.
And let me say this too, this is all contingent upon your approval as well as the county commissioner's approval. So once we have a contract drafted, then we would present to them.
Okay. One more question for me, and I'll shut up and let the council. In the off-season, we allow our dogs in our ordinances, they are allowed to be off-leash on the beach from 8 a.m. until, 6 p.m.? Something like that. On our beach, it's practically empty in the off-season, so what would we have to do as far as setting up a separate ordinance just for the town of Oak Island?
I think that's probably going to be a legal question for your attorney as
Okay.
well as mine that y'all could work out or ours could work out. I don't foresee a problem.
Okay.
And you don't have to adopt all of that. I mean, you could just adopt parts of the ordinance that you need them for. So, I mean, I think there's a lot there, a lot of things that may not pertain to you.
Yeah,
So that would be a legal thing.
there's a lot about the county, county places that just wouldn't apply in a municipality, farm animals,
Right.
yeah. Counselor Weinkoff, you have any questions?
I got a couple. As far as where we're required to register the dogs and stuff, how would that work out with the county?
I was wondering about that myself. I don't think we would want to collect.
We don't collect any fee for it.
Yeah,
Oh, you don't?
no, they just have to be registered anyway.
And I think I made a note somewhere in my notes too to talk with Tim about that
Okay.
as well.
That's basically, it's a benefit if they they find a dog at large, and if they do have their rabies tag on, but they don't have an ID tag. If they're registered with the town, Animal Control has that list with them at all times, and they can look up the contact information.
Okay.
That's the reason we require them to be registered.
And you know, one thing too is if we absorb, or when we would absorb one of your employees, I don't see a lot of change as the way they do business day to day.
Right.
And I think that's very important in a small town to keep somebody that people know. So we actually are looking forward to being able to absorb one of them.
I like it that the major thing that would change would be, it's kind of like with the police when we sent the dispatch to the county. It was still our police officers that are being dispatched. And this will still be at least one of our animal control officers. And if we get into this and we figure out that we need 1.5 or 2, then I assume the county would be willing to discuss
We could definitely
amending the
discuss that.
agreement.
Absolutely.
Okay. And it would still be the people here that know the people here.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Councilor Medlin?
I've got my questions answered. I'm good.
No, after that inquisition, I think I'm good.
I got mine answered.
Okay.
You did say
Please.
something about the list that they would have. I would hope that we could continue to have that as well, to look up you know, the tags or whatever too.
We could possibly make it part of the agreement that the officer would continue or maintain the registration list, or the town of Oak Island would continue the ordinance requiring registration of the dogs, and the officer would maintain that list at all times.
You put anything in there you
Okay.
want to, send it to us, and then we'll scratch it up a little bit and send it back. So we're gonna be real easy to work with on it, so.
Yeah. I'm making notes here. Would you prefer that we send these questions about off-leash, off-season, and the registrations and that sort of thing to the county's attorney to kind of work
To make
up,
amendments in the contract?
yeah, to work up an
Yeah.
agreement?
Yeah, I think our staff attorney, Mose Highsmith, and your manager should be able to work through all those.
We'll use the county tax money for the county attorney instead of ours?
Here you go.
We can do that, we can do that. Pay county taxes too.
Yep, there you go. No other? I expected a room full of people, based on the responses that we got from Facebook. There were quite a number of responses, but most of the responses were because they like Tammy and Gary. They like our officers, they like how they respond, they like being able to call them at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night because of a raccoon. I have been on the phone for a total of 10 hours since Wednesday, discussing this with different people, because it really threw me for a loop that we were gonna lose the best animal control officers, the best animal control situation in the United States in town of Oak Island. They are the best. They'll run circles around your officers. So I'm sort of relieved on a lot of the questions that I had.
Well, I'm available. I mean, if you need to have more over the weekend or whenever, just call. Please call. And we'll try to get them answered as quickly as we can.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, you go from 11% to 46% adoption rate, and you've seen our shelter. We take it very serious.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh, I've had to go up there and, for 3-day-old puppies, and they have no clue what to do with them. But I would encourage everybody out there to go visit the Brunswick Sheriff's Office's Animal Services Facility. It is a happy place. There's
Smells
always yeah, it is great. And they've got this huge van now, this huge RV that they take and go out and do adoption fairs. We've never had that. I mean, you're at Big Toy Day, you're at every event with the animals in that adoption van.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
We usually have one staff person with that trailer, and the rest are volunteers.
Uh-huh. Go in the parades.
We do all kinds of stuff. Yes,
I
ma'am.
thought of one more question. You said that you're still in the discussions with St. James. What about Caswell Beach?
Nobody's contacted us.
Nobody's contacted you. Okay. So if St. James decides to contract with you, would this person be shared between St. James and Oak Island?
That was the original intent. A few weeks ago, St. James had contacted us as well, and we kind of thought we were going to be in a 75-25 type situation. And I met with their budget committee yesterday and kind of got surprised because it went totally the opposite way on instead of 25% per call as needed basis. And I wasn't prepared to answer that at that time. So I had a conversation with their manager a while ago, and I told him I still wasn't prepared to do that I had to meet with you. And as far as I'm concerned, this officer is 100% yours if that's the route you go.
Well, let me add one thing here, and we hadn't really discussed this. I would assume that if St. James at some time in the next 6 months or a year, if they wanted to come on, the proposal will be the same, 25%, so our costs could
Oh,
decrease
absolutely.
a little bit upon renewal. So that, we'll
Sure.
word the document that way so that if Southport or some other agency comes on and we're gonna share that person, that
Absolutely.
our cost share would be amended according to the share.
Right. Absolutely. Caswell, Southport, St. James, whoever.
Okay.
How would you handle, it's been 10 years, I think, that we've had 2 animal control officers. When you've got 40,000 people here on the beach and 40 to 50% of them have their dogs, there's a lot of calls. If we had situations that our animal control officer was busy, really busy, and you needed to send somebody else to help, how would that work as far as,
We would pull somebody from another area of the county.
right, but you wouldn't charge us any extra
No,
to
ma'am.
send that
No,
second
ma'am.
person? Okay,
Absolutely not.
okay.
We need to send 2 more, 3 more. Me and the sheriff need to come. I mean, we'll handle it.
Yeah, okay. Do you think, how many other beach communities have their own animal control? Ocean Isle, Holden, Sunset, Caswell, Bald Head, any of them have it?
And let me apologize. This is Dennis Harpster. He's a senior officer there at the shelter. I don't think any other,
No?
yeah, nothing like y'all have.
So the county responds to all animal control issues? Only bites, not dogs at large?
We have some agreements to where we'll go and pick up from a holding facility that they may have in a town once or twice a week, but that's it. I mean, we don't patrol or enforce. The county's just too big with what we got.
Yeah. Any other questions from council?
Just one comment. I was looking at the department report that we had in our packet last meeting. And in the month of April, we had 117 total calls. And I'd like to ask, and Tammy, you may have to answer this, during the tourist season, does that increase a lot? How much do you know?
You can't tell. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It definitely increases from April to October. say doubles, but you get, 50, maybe 50 or so, that's just off the top of my head, more.
And since you couldn't hear her on the microphone, she said, yes, it does increase. She doesn't know exactly how much, but you get 50 or more in addition to the regular ones.
And I guess my question is, and I had assumed that that would be the case, if it's taking 2 officers to handle that many calls now during the season, how are we gonna handle with 1 officer?
Well, I mean, that's just like we do with our patrol shifts or any other thing we have going on. You know, the summer months, we increase in call volume, and we just divide and conquer and take care of business. So, you know, we have personnel, not that we have personnel sitting around doing nothing, we have personnel that we can pull from other areas to assist in whatever area we need help in, so.
Do you ever use deputies to respond to these kind of calls?
Yes, we do. At night, you know, injured animals, and they've been really great at it. You know, dogs running at large, stuff like that. Yeah, we do. Before we call out an officer, we'll send a deputy in the county to check the situation.
Okay.
And some of our animal control officers are deputies. When we took over, there were some vacancies that people retired and that nature, and we filled them with certified law enforcement officers, so they have the power of arrest on site.
Let me add to that too a little bit. Our police officers still might get dispatched to at-large dog, et cetera, and we'll still have 1 vehicle that we can transport. So the town still has a limited response to help out with the sheriff's department in case we need it. So that's not gonna go away.
And neither Oak Island nor the county, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, responds to a dog at large unless they have the dog contained. I mean, if you just see one running down the street, they're not gonna go dispatch, because the time you get there, that dog's gonna be gone.
Yeah.
They're gonna be 3 blocks away, or they're gonna go home.
Well, that's why we use our shift people to check things like that. And then if somebody has one detained, then we will send our truck to get it.
Oh, and all of our animal control calls, how are they dispatched currently, and would they then be dispatched from central dispatch at the county? How are your animal control calls dispatched and how are ours? What's gonna be the difference?
It's mainly through 911.
They're already currently dispatched through county dispatch?
Well,
Okay,
they'll
so that doesn't change.
Yeah, and a lot of times in the county, they'll just transfer that call to the shelter, or a lot of people know to call the shelter direct too, so.
And can we make sure if we do this to get the telephone number for the animal services shelter out as much as possible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think we actually have some magnets and different handout things that we could distribute here on the island.
That would be good if we could get those to put in all the rental houses.
Yeah.
That'd be
it would.
great. Anybody else? I appreciate you being here to answer all
Thank
those
you.
questions for us.
I'm gonna stay for a little while if you have any more.
Oh,
during
please.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If there's no further discussion, I guess this particular budget item, we need to have a motion on just this particular item. So does any council member, do you have anything else you need
I
to
don't have
discuss
anything
with
else
us?
to add. I was just hoping to get some direction so we'll know how to prepare your final budget, so
Yep.
yes.
Chair will entertain a motion by a council member on what you please to do. Go with the county or keep it as it is, or reduce it to 1 officer on our budget. That's our 3 choices, I think. That right?
That's it, unless you come up with any more.
Don't come up with any more.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I will make a motion that we transfer our animal control to the county as proposed in our budget.
Have a motion by Councilor Medlin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Painter. May I ask one more question? Okay. We're going to, if one of our animal control officers wants to go with the county, they will be employed by the county.
That is correct.
Do you have positions open in other departments that you're currently taking applications that the other animal control officer could apply for? And
Yes.
that you think they might be qualified for? So the other employee that we're going to lose, we're not really going to lose. We're going to fill, they may be able to fill a position that we would have filled anyway in the current budget.
That's correct.
Okay. and we would still have them. Okay. Okay, sorry, any further discussion? All those in favor, please. All those opposed. Motion carries 4-1 with Counselor Kaiser dissenting. Thank you once again for being here for these questions, and I guess for anybody in the public that has any questions about it, call the shelter. And if they,
Lieutenant Tommy Tolley.
the shelter, Animal Services Director for the Sheriff's Office is Lieutenant Tommy Tolley, and the telephone number is 754-8204. I've dialed that number for 15 years. And Tim, if you don't mind, if we could, Mr. Holloman, I'm sorry, we're in a meeting. If you don't mind, if we could put that number on Channel 8 and just ask Kyle to put it in the Oak Island Tribune, that if you have questions, if you have dog calls or something, call dispatch, but just for questions about either works.
This agreement will not start until July 1, so we continue operating as is, and you'll see the actual agreement probably at your June 9th board meeting to flesh all this out, so. But we'll get the numbers out, and we'll let people know effective July 1, there'll be a different service provider with
Right.
The same great service that we've always experienced is what we're shooting for.
And that'll give you more opportunity to include the difference in the budget figures, to include it in this instead of what we got there right now.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Okay, rest of the budget.
All right, Madam Mayor, just before I go into the slide, I think Kyle's going to put the projector down, but or the screen. Councilor Painter called and sent some emails this morning. I don't have this on the screen, but I'll try to go over some of the questions that she had earlier. I may bounce around just slightly. In the revenue section, under general fund revenue in your budget notebooks, you have year-to-date revenue as of April 30th, and then you have estimated revenue at year's end. Those formulas were not transferred because some of those numbers are lower than the actual 430 numbers, so we'll have the corrected numbers in on your June 2nd budget, so that's the only reason those just were not updated. So that's the revenue on the general fund revenue section on the your fourth tab there. So that's one of the questions. Another question was, and I'm not going to switch to the tab right now unless you want to see it, it looked like Public Works had about $24,000 more in expenditures and salaries than they had the previous year, and they do, but that's not a new position. That position was reflected in stormwater in the prior year, and now it's shown in Public Works. So that's where that came up.
Okay, just before you go on further, that was Public Works, operations, I
Public Works
believe.
operations, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you said, can you say it one more time?
The salary, it looks like it's about $24,000 more than it was last year, and it is, but it's not a new employee. That employee in the last budget was taken out of stormwater salaries. And so if you look at stormwaters, their salary has been reduced by that amount. And I didn't get a chance to go research it any further than that, but my assumption is that one time they were doing more duties closely reflected stormwater, and now they've switched their duties, and that's why the salary is taken out of a different department. So that was one of the questions.
While you're at Public Works,
Mhm.
mosquito control, that was questioned last time, that wasn't in the budget.
That should be added back in there. That should be added back. And it will be on your June 2nd. We don't have the updated figures yet, but it will be added back in. We're still doing mosquito control.
Okay.
All right, I think another question was, let's see. Oh, and
Professional services.
professional services, well, I was gonna do the fire department first, then I'll come back to professional services. In the fire department, with the station, the third station coming online, there's about $5,000 more in departmental supplies than it was last year. So that was another one of, Councilor Painter's questions. You asked about the $7,500.
All right, I did, and would you mind saying it one more time?
Because they took on the third station when they took on station number 2, and now they have to get additional departmental supplies for that station. That's when I checked with Chief Anselmo today, that's what he was talking about. And then there is, part of that is also the awards banquet for firemen. That will probably be transferred to staff development, but that's where the other 25 out of that $7,500 comes from. Now, if you want to commit to amend it or tell me to amend it, that's fine, but that's where it came from.
And while you're at the fire department, why did overtime jump so much?
Overtime in the fire department.
Yeah,
Um,
I had noticed that.
I probably have to check with Chris to see exactly why. I know at one time, but I thought this was 2 years ago, when they lost their volunteers, they were doing a little bit more work, and so I'm not sure if that's the same reason, the
I
overtime.
can answer that. It's because the paramedic class.
Paramedic class, okay.
We're requiring the people to go to the paramedic class, and you have to, we addressed that, when we went paramedic level. We knew that it would be split over 2 different budget years because the class is going over 1 budget year, and then it starts at 1 budget year and finishing in the other.
And they have
So
classes
for that
twice a
money.
week, right? Is that one?
Yes, twice a week. Because I asked that exact question to the fire chief, why the overtime, and it's because of the paramedic class.
And before the next question, I know this is going to be broadcast. I'd like to note that Deputy Sheriff Miller is out in the lobby with all the people that were in here about and they're all having a great discussion out there. You can see it. Everybody's laughing. So thank you to him for staying here and taking the time to speak to all those people. That's cool. Okay.
Did you get I know my question came late to you today in an email. Did you get it, Tim?
No, I don't think I got, if you sent an email, I did not chance to look at it.
I know last year when they requested for their fire inspector, it was told that they would bring in this amount of money that would pay for the fire inspector. At the next meeting, will you bring us how much they have collected?
Yes, we
So
will.
we'll know if it's,
And also, there's going to be another cost savings on that. There was a decision last year to have the county inspect the town buildings. We're going to go back to the town inspecting the town facilities. We can enforce the same rules and regulations. We don't have to contract that out. So that should be a savings as well by not having to pay the county fees.
Yeah. right.
So, but we'll have that information. All right, another question I think that came up was in administration or professional services.
Oh, hold 1 second. One quick question on the fire department.
Okay.
We will have some expenses. We're going through getting certified as paramedic level and being with the DEA and all that. There's costs involved with that, so that it's this fiscal year or next fiscal year, but after that, those costs should go away.
I don't know if it'll go quite away, it will go down.
But because they'll have to keep replenishing their supplies. It'll be an ongoing.
Right.
Yep.
It may not be as much, but it will be
I'm
ongoing.
just talking about the cost that we have the things we have to go through to get that
You have to read-
certification.
Are you talking about the actual supplies or the administrative cost of getting the,
Both, I mean, all that filing and all the time having to get, go to
I
the
think the
different
DA
agencies.
license is every 3 years or every other year, I can't remember which. But
You might see a decrease of 20 to 25%, but I don't think it's going to totally go away.
Okay,
And I don't have a better handle on the numbers.
okay, I'm sorry, you were going to,
I was actually going back to town council under the professional services. We broke it out this year between legal and other, and that is why the audit is actually included under other, so you'll see there's a decrease in professional services from last year because we've broken that out. So that's why the difference.
What you're saying is that, that was where my question was on the estimated 6/30/2015 year-end expense of $10,000, and I thought that was to include the audit cost. But you're saying it's included in the $200,000 above it. And
For
it's-
this current year.
For the current year, and for the next year, it's separated, it's under, the audit is under other.
The other. We try to
Okay.
group the legal out so you could actually see legal costs a little bit easier. than-
Uh-huh, that's good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see.
and that total is 231,000 for the total professional services, legal and other, and this year, the estimated expense is 210, so that's a $21,000 increase. Is that because of the software implementation?
Well, I don't, not on professional services, that's shown later in administrative. So I think that was just our estimate of proposed legal services based on some of this Wells Fargo thing we're doing and some other review we have to have as well, so.
Oh,
And-
there's sand management in there.
Right, yeah, explain the sand management being in there.
The sand management, as far as Dave and I can tell, we didn't take it out. It doesn't have to be in there. It could be in a different location, but we just didn't feel comfortable enough in taking it out this year because we didn't know what you would use it for in the past.
And
So
you have budgeted for it in the past.
Wouldn't that go under the accommodations tax?
We could put it under accommodations tax and not have it in here, so if that's the way the board feels, we're just kind of waiting on some guidance. That's okay with us.
What you guys think, transfer that $10,000 to accommodations tax instead of leaving it under the town council?
Well, we need to know what was it for?
And we don't have a printout, but we could probably get a printout. I'm assuming it was for like Moffett Nickel, but that was a smaller amount, and
There
Yeah,
was an
so
invoice
small.
for Moffett Nickel, start a study, I believe is what it was.
Yeah, and it was for the startup.
I think it was for the beach nourishment excluding the Lockwood Folly dredging.
And that would be their work on continuing to attempt.
it would have been, but now we've got their, what we got in, accommodations tax is $150,000. So we're taking care of Moffett Nickel for next year. So it's not necessary this $10,000 stay in here. But like I said, didn't have a good handle on what the board uses for, so we didn't want to
That's
deallocate it without knowing a little bit more.
Board want to eliminate that
well,
10,000?
just-
I don't know that it matters where it's coming from.
Well, I just want to be sure that it's not the BBC lobbying expense.
And, well, David says no, but it could have been at one time.
Yeah, maybe at one time, but I'm almost sure last year's was Moffett Nickel.
What Tim is asking is council consensus to take that out altogether, I think.
I'll just take that
Just
amount and
remove
put it
that
under
$10,000.
accommodations tax and either increase the accommodation reserve or
Yeah.
just put it in.
We've got
Take
the other
it
money for
away.
Moffett Nickel.
When we take away, you put in reserves and it builds up reserves, so we could do that.
Which is
It's not earmarking it for expenses.
Okay.
So that's $10,000 we need to move. Okay. All right, so that is the professional services in town council. Let's see. Okay, that's it. Oh, and one question was, I think administrative capital outlay for technology, that $50,000 is yes because of the unanticipated changes with Tyler software. We may have to do some cloud storage. We may have other hardware or other associated software costs for that. So Dave said on a regular basis, he's getting requests from Becky for changes to accommodate that. new
So it's
software.
not specifically that cloud storage?
No, it's not specifically cloud storage, no.
So where does that show up, the cloud storage amount?
It would be in that technology number. If we got an invoice in for that, that's where we would charge it.
Okay, because I thought that was maybe even more than 50,000 a year.
Would that be broken down by department and charged out per department, Dave?
More
Oh.
than likely, once we got it.
You'd
that's-
split it
if
out
she
to
could split it,
departments.
Tell me where it goes to each department.
So we might need to look in other spots for more money or more, do we need to check and see if that's in all the other departments?
A lot of times IT expenses are what, under expendable equipment. Sometimes it used to be called assets under 5,000 and now it's called expendable equipment. So that's where some of that comes from as well. I mean, if the board would like, when we cut a check to Tyler or something, we can do a detailed summary of all the invoices that go to a company and provide you that, so you know exactly how much is spent per vendor. I mean, we do that anytime during the year if you want to see that detail.
I guess I just was hoping to know, be able to see how it goes year to year. So if it's,
I
if it's,
don't anticipate it being that much, but I didn't want to leave it blank and just in case. Because like I said, the IT person has come in, she comes in almost on a weekly basis, if not every other day, saying, well, we need this, we need this, we have to upgrade to this. And I think it's some items have just been put off for a while and they're outdated and technology has changed.
So you said in other departments, if there is cloud expense, it might show up as what?
Expendable equipment or either contract services. And I'll get with Becky and we'll try to get a number on what the overall price is, because I have not heard her say that, or I've not seen a paper with the overall price.
David, do you have any idea of what the outstanding balance is on the note for the pier? I noticed the debt service is only 90,000 and the interest is only 15, so could,
I think there are 2 more years after this year. I think I
Well,
looked at that.
how much interest will we save if we use part of the reserve to just pay that off?
We just made a payment on the pier with the principal being 90,000 this year and interest of 15,804. We have 3 more payments. That pier will be paid off in fiscal year 2018, 2019.
So how much in principal
It
is
looks like about
outstanding and due now?
Principal's 270,000.
Yeah.
And according to amortization, I've got 11,853 interest next year, 7,902 the following year, and then the final year's 3,951.
Hey, Dave, on that, actually 90,000 and 15,000 is 15, 16, because we've got 4 years. 15,
You're right.
16 is 1 year and then 3 more after that.
Yeah, so you would add that 15 to it?
36.
Having a hard time reading it.
That'd be $36,000 in interest that could be saved. I don't know
Yes.
if anybody will want to look at it. The past couple of years, the council has been very good about looking at our outstanding debt and going ahead and paying some off to save the interest cost on it. You've saved a lot of money for the town doing it that way.
Well, with our fund balance being where it is, it might be wise to look at that.
I think we could do that. Also, we do have that unanticipated, we don't know what's going to happen with the preserve, and that could be an unanticipated expense as well. So
Now,
demolition, because we don't have that in the budget. So I don't. With that in mind, depending on what your priorities are, we'll move. But either refinance or move on that would be. Both those numbers are going to be in about the same realm. That's the reason I bring that up.
Well, this might be a good time to talk about the revenue neutral tax rate. As you explained to me, revenue neutral was gonna be 29.5 if we went up, but if we stayed at 27.5, maybe you could explain that again.
That is an option. I mean, the budget you have before you keeps it at below revenue neutral. So if you increased it to the revenue neutral rate, that'd be about 1 3/4 pennies, and then you could take those funds and dedicate them to debt service if you wanted it, but that would be a tax increase. But you do have that option, and that would, and it's still revenue neutral, and that's what most towns shoot for. So, I mean, our budget is actually coming in below revenue neutral, which is kind of unheard of during revow.
So theoretically, the person's tax bill will stay the same if we go up
No.
to 27 or
no,
29.5.
No, the tax rate to do revenue neutral for the entire town as a whole, our total tax base decreased by 5%.
Right.
If we go to a revenue neutral tax rate, somebody whose property decreased in value by 5% will pay about the same in property taxes. Mine increased by 20%. So if they go to the revenue neutral tax rate, I'm gonna be paying more money. I think, Lee, thank you. I read the article in the Pilot about the difference on your county taxes on a $200,000 property. And it goes from 700 and some odd up to 800 and some odd of the counties, because they're reduced too. So it's not a matter of you would be paying the same amount of taxes. It's a matter of what did your value change to as opposed to the town as a whole.
With a revenue neutral rate, the town is supposed to be kind of held harmless and take in about the same amount of revenue. But like I said, you can't make a generalization on individual cases.
You mentioned the preserve. I hadn't heard anything about us going in and demolishing that building because it is not a safety concern. It's not a public health concern. it's an aesthetic opinion, and I know it's ugly, but I was told that it would take between $450,000 and $500,000 to demolish that building. So I'm surprised that we would even be considering spending that money, since it's not health and safety issues there.
Well, you know, it's been mentioned as a nuisance violation, or it's still a potential safety, but the only reason I equated that is because you won't be able to do both. If you decided to take action on the preserve, you wouldn't be able to pay off this debt. So I didn't want the board to be thinking we could do both of these efforts. And if there's an effort to, you know, act eventually on the preserve, then you may put off paying off debt for a year. But like you said, it depends on the eye of the beholder about how but it's not an immediate hazard. But now to say it's not a hazard altogether, I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's a potential hazard.
Would you, I was gonna ask you today anyway, that great review that you did as far as the rocks on the beach, how
Well,
that
Kathleen
happened.
did a lot of that work, so she,
Would it be hard for you to get with Steve and Josh and work up a review of that preserve from the time that they started, the Shericos took it over, and we started working with them? It's been 3 years, 4 years? I know 2 years ago, I was interviewed by WECT at the preserve, and they were supposed to have demolished that within 6 months after that interview. They got a demolition permit. I think that's expired. So could we get a list of what's happened on that?
we could.
And if you need to, I mean, Steve Edwards and Josh know it all, but if you need to, call Steve Foster. He'd be more than willing to let you know about the conversations we had with them.
Well, I think Kathleen, if I get her with Steve and Josh, she does a very good job about pulling it together, and that's how we'll do it. And basically form a timeline of what's happened so far. It gives you a couple of pages to sum up.
Have we been able to talk to the owner yet?
We have not, but I did hear last week that Bob Duffy, I think the gentleman who was working with the owners, is no longer employed by them, and that's been confirmed. So I'm assuming this time is at a standstill again. That's kind of one reason.
Well, I received a letter from the preserve, since I have a place there now. And they're looking for a new board of directors because Cherokos no longer have controlling interest in that property. They only have 25% interest according to the letter. So I'm wondering if something has took place, since their controlling interest is normally 25% now. So
Not aware of that.
I think we need to talk to them and see where they're at and see if things have changed hands.
I didn't, did they finally get that?
Well,
They had
that's
some people
what-
that were buying out.
That's what I'd like to know,
Yeah.
because I got my letter yesterday saying that. They're
And they
wanting-
promised
they're
us when those people bought it out,
Yeah.
that they would start those cottages.
Yep.
They would get that demolished and start the cottages.
And the way I understand it now, that's on hold, so we need to find
Yeah,
out more about it.
but
Why?
if they have,
Because of what Jeff just mentioned, that some of the relationships have changed.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
but if something's happened, let's find out.
Okay.
Jeff, the homeowners association at the preserve, they have their board of directors.
Right,
Are they
that's,
questioning the 75% major shareholders on where we stand?
well, and that's the whole thing. They diverted everything over and switched everything out for this to happen, for this sale to happen. And this letter, the way I read it, the Cherokos were on the board.
Right.
So that now that they don't have the majority of percentage of ownership anymore, it makes me think, have they sold
Yeah.
principal ownership? Since they're gonna now have to come off this board.
There
So
was
that's
some
just-
agreement they had to sign with the
Right.
HOA before they could
And that was
complete that
done.
transaction.
Yep.
It was done, okay.
That was done, all that was done with the HOA, so I'd like to know where they stand.
All right.
Okay, we'll check into that.
Do you want to, does the council want to express an opinion right now on paying off the police department, the pier?
I say if we can save interest in the long run, absolutely.
Well, it's $40,000 with interest.
I would certainly like us to look at it, but I think we need to maybe not make a decision. We might need to look
Till
at,
last week.
look at all of our options.
Well, just to kind of review now, I mean, the principal itself is $360,000. So I think even in reserve for this year, we have about $100,000 that's not spoken for, so that gives you 260. So I don't know where that 260 would come from unless we go to revenue neutral tax rate. So if I need to be directed, and Dave, to do the revenue neutral to be able to accommodate that, but right now, we cannot accommodate that in the current budget.
You know what that is, that would not affect the revenue neutral tax rate, because that's paid out of the accommodations tax. That always has been, or unless they changed it at some point.
Well,
Everything on that
you
pier
could pay it
is-
out of
yeah.
accommodations tax, but the board also has the beach nourishment stuff in the background too.
Yeah.
Trying
So
to,
you would have to look at the accommodations tax and its health, and see if it has the money to pay that off, because that wouldn't affect our ad valorem taxes.
no, it does have the money, but then you change your priority, so that's,
No, I'd rather keep it for beach, there's nourishment.
Okay.
so leave the tax rate the same and
Yeah,
no refinance.
Jeff said leave the money in beach renourishment instead of paying the principal, all the principal off on
Well,
the pier.
I mean, we haven't, I think we're still gonna talk about a property tax increase to establish a beach nourishment fund,
Mhm.
which would not be leaving the tax rate the same
No,
at
it would
all.
not be.
No.
Now, you
We-
wouldn't create
we need
money
to-
paying off debt, though, that would be dedicated money for beach nourishment.
Carol, make sure we get to discussing that when we get through Tim's.
Okay, I
Overview.
just
Make
wanted
sure
to, we're
that's-
getting sort of ahead of ourselves.
We are, we're,
Madam Mayor, if you'll let me, we'll try to get us back on track here. I'll just, we've answered some questions, and from the first workshop, agencies that have not used funding for 14, 15 have been contacted. I don't know if anybody's come in to get them, I hope they have, who's come in to get their money?
The senior citizen.
Senior citizens have come in to get their money. I don't know about Community Watch, if they've come in or not. Also, and we'll get to personnel in just a second. I've got about 4 slides, and then we talk some more about that. On your podium or at your stations, you should have a list of roads needing repaving. Right now, we have $300,000 in the budget. We're trying to get the best deal on repaving. If you have a particular street that you'd like us to pay attention to, we probably need to know that. We are going to approach DOT to see if they've got any paving work this year, and maybe we can bid our work out with them and make our buck go a little bit further by contracting out with a bigger job. So pause for a second if you want to kind of glance through that real quick.
are these the ones that still have not been resurfaced?
Correct. And George is supposed to be getting me a list too of everything that's been resurfaced in the last 5 years since 2010, just so we'll kind of know what's been resurfaced, but I don't have that list.
We still have this much on East and West Dolphin Drive? I thought that was almost done. No? It's still there?
As far as I know now, I didn't go out and physically look at this list yet, but yes, I'm thinking that's still left to be done.
So this doesn't actually make a recommendation.
No, it just prioritizes, it looks how many cuts and lets you know, kind of lets you know the volume of what the work going to have to be done. I think the worst ones are listed, priority order. I need to get back and check, but I think the ones with the most cuts and damage are at the top of the list.
Perhaps you could get with Public Works and you and they work up a recommendation to council, because you're the ones that see the roads and see the condition they're in.
We will, and what I'd recommend on that, if we spend the allotted $300,000 from the state this year for POW bill funds, prepare a bid document, but this work will probably not take place until the second half of the budget year, so you probably won't see these bids until December, January, and February, and the work will probably start in March. So if the board authorizes the budget, you see this, but this will come on later in the actual budget year as far as bids to do streets. And we'll give you the streets we're proposing on getting bids for.
What did you say about exceeding the budget?
No, when you authorize it, we've got $300,000 for resurfacing. So once you authorize the budget, you've authorized that amount. We'll come back later with the streets and let you,
Okay,
and
okay.
recommend it. We'll be able to do some paving every year. But now, I did, yesterday, I finally got a chance to look at some of the numbers. We have about 553 street miles in town. So even at $300,000 a year, that's probably not quite enough to meet all our street maintenance needs. And I don't really want to get that in this budget workshop. Maybe in 16, 17 at retreat, we need to talk more about that. But there's more needs out there than we actually have maintenance money for our streets. That's a lot of miles of streets for a small town. Okay, moving right along. In that discussion about roads, we talked a little bit about paving some of these short streets on Dolphin and Ocean and Beach Drive. Someone asked about the annual cost to operate the motor grader. The annual cost is not too expensive, $3,500. $3,500. Replacement cost for a motor grader is anywhere from $100,000 to $125,000 for a refurbished, and up as high as $250,000 for a new motor grader. Somebody wanted to know what would happen, because in the last workshop we talked about if we paved all our streets, we could sell the motor grader and not have to keep that expense up. I think the only time we'd have to have a motor grader is once a year to scrape like the airport drive and out of the fleet maintenance. We could rent that for a couple of weeks. So anyway, that came up as a question. I don't really think any actions anticipated. People just wanted to know that information. All right, any comments on that? The beach ambassador salary funding will be removed from the town budget. We've had a chance to look a little bit more at this. We actually need to invoice, the way I understand, the Beach Preservation Society for the salary. I think Sarah gave me some figures yesterday. I think last 13-14 we spent about $3,600 if I remember right, and then a corresponding amount this year. So that's how I'm understanding it be handled, and so we'll not have that salary line item there.
I'm confused.
Okay.
The Beach Preservation Trust Fund Advisory Board and the Beach Preservation Society are the same thing. All of their donations are put into the town of Oak Island's fund balance in your bank account, and all expenses are paid out of it through our budget. So how are they going to continue to pay that beach ambassador without having it go through our records? Their money is the town money. They're not a separate entity.
Well, there's two separate issues there. We're going to try to encourage them to get on their own, so we won't have that until they're on their own. We're always going to have accounting issues about where's the money and where's the money, what shell is it under at the time. Because Skip Cox's salary actually wound up coming out of Public Works, and then it's supposed to be in Beach Ambassadors. That's why we were confused last time, because I think Beach Ambassadors was inadvertently left out of last year's budget, and then when it was put back in. So yes, there's confusion over it, but they're supposed to pay for the salaries, and I'm making assumptions here that they give us money to cover their expenses, but they may have a few more donations that we have not received yet.
No.
Okay. Well,
all money received by that, the wine tasting, all the membership fees, everything is deposited into the budget of the town. There's no way they can pay out anything without it going through the town.
Well, then we'll have to look at their existing budget. And Roseanne, I think, got back in town last night, but I've not had a chance to talk to her today about that. So if they want to keep on the effort and pay Skip, they're going to have to cut expenses somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or Skip is going to have to be totally volunteer.
Yeah, all of their entire budget has to be approved by the town council as part of the total budget. So whatever they submit, if it includes this beach ambassador, that would be up to council to approve or not.
Now, one thing, I think the beach ambassador department will stay separate from beach preservation, because I think the way I understood, at one time council wanted that because they were handing out pamphlets and doing some things that we wanted them to do. So we paid a little bit for departmental supplies and that type of thing. So the way I understand right now, there'll still be a beach ambassador department to pay for associated expenses that are not strictly beach preservation. That's my understanding.
How does that work, David? I mean, does the council approve a separate department from money that is received through the Trust Fund Advisory Board, or?
Now, the one I just mentioned, the beach ambassadors, if that's $1,500 or whatever it winds up being, that is not beach preservation money. That's money the town's allotted because they want the beach ambassadors to do something related to, like tent ordinance or something that's not necessarily beach preservation related.
And you, go ahead.
Did,
That makes
Madam
sense.
Clerk, Lisa,
Yes.
did everybody receive this, or just me?
No, I gave a copy to you and Jim because you were the two that specifically asked me about it.
Okay. We have here, based on Lisa's research, that on March 11th, 2014, there was a budget ordinance amendment was adopted for the purpose of transferring funds from the Beach Preservation Trust Fund and from the general fund's fund balance to allow for the creation of a general fund department for the Beach Ambassadors Program. And it says this budget authorization also includes the addition of a seasonal part-time employee to help administer the new volunteer-supported program. And at that time, the salary amount was originally set at $2,700 with additions to that of $240 for FICA and,
Unemployment or?
let's see, salary, FICA, unemployment. Yes. So, how it went up to 3,600 is another question. I believe this was a consent agenda item, so we may not have discussed it. It may have been passed, and we may, I honestly don't remember us doing this, but we did it.
We did.
And then for this year's budget, I set 10,575 back up in this budget package. If you look on 2014, 14-15, there was no budget for Beach Ambassadors, 10,575. So I've got it set back up, and it's coming in under the general fund at this point. And it's where you will see that salary at $5,000, which may be higher than what we really need. So I tried to set this back up so you all
I'm
can
just
see it.
wondering how the salaries went up to
What was he
begin
actually
with.
paid last year? Wasn't it about $3,200?
I think it's between
Oh, yeah,
about
there is a
$3,600 last year,
I think, Jim.
$3,400.
3,600.
I
I
believe
guess
so.
what I'm hearing from the board now, is the board okay with still paying the salary out of general fund dollars
Well, we approved it in the budget in March.
in 13-14?
Budget, is that, but Carol, is that budget meant out of general fund or out of,
General
accommodation
fund.
It's a general fund.
General fund. I think we need to talk about this, so we may need to think about it a little bit. It's a bit concerning to me that we have a volunteer, what's essentially a volunteer, and I know that, by my goodness, he works himself to death. I know it's very, he works a lot, but so do a lot of other volunteers for the town. So I'm just wondering if this is, we set up a salary and it's evidently been going up.
I don't think it's ever been, supposed to be over 5,000, but it's somewhere between that $3,500 and $5,000 range is what's anticipated.
In the I found the Beach Ambassador budget, and you got the recommended 5,000. Okay, it's on,
I know, I saw it.
10.
Now, we've not changed that since last time, so like I said, we're trying to get all the changes to say we have it on June 2nd, but if the board so chooses to leave it at a minimum salary rate in there, or if they want us to take it out, I mean, we can,
I wanna see it gone.
okay.
I don't know about everybody else, but we shouldn't be paying for volunteers.
So Counselor Weinkoff, Counselor Painter, consensus to eliminate that and all the payroll expenses with it. Counselor Midland, what is your,
Well,
or do you have one yet?
probably.
Do we need a motion, Lisa, or just do it in the budget discussion, tell them
You can just take
You just-
consensus.
consensus? Okay.
Just consensus, that's right.
I guess we did approve this and didn't realize what all was in it. But, in lieu of that, I guess there's two things that kind of give me some heartburn here. And one of them being, the Beach Preservation Society needs to be set up as a 501(c)(3). And they need to control their own expenditures and take care of their own money. And I will put that on the agenda for our June meeting, for that to happen. I know we have a lot of dedicated volunteers in our town that spend a lot of time. I also know that during the summertime, this is just about a full-time job for Skip. And he spends an inordinate amount of time in the summertime doing what he does. I don't have an issue with paying him for all the time that he spends. I just think we need to do it right. We need to get it set up where it needs to be, and it needs to be done right. And this is not right.
Well, are you saying that you think he needs to be an employee of the town, or he needs to be paid somehow by the Beach Preservation Trust Fund 5013C?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. He should be paid out of that money, the beach preservation money. Does anybody know how much money they have in the bank? Last I heard, last year was, what's been, $30-something thousand? It was their bank balance. But we got,
Their
you can't
budget
tell by looking at
is
that.
in this budget.
You can't tell by looking at it. It doesn't say anything about their bank balance. But my point is, they've got money. And this is a beach issue, this is a beach service, and he's working directly with them to perform this service. So the money should come out of that fund if we pay him. It should come out of that fund, not the town budget.
Yeah.
We can work it out, and if we don't receive the funds, there'll be no funds for salary, so
I think, the money that was paid to him last year, $3,600, whatever it was, since we control the purse strings of both that and the town, then can we not reimburse ourselves for that money since it was spent out of the town budget? Spent out of town funds?
if they have funds left in their revenue, I'm not sure if they.
They've got money.
Well, they
It'll top their
suggest,
banking.
I was not aware that they had they don't have a bank account. If they have if they have excess funds, it's in our bank accounts, included in a fund balance.
I don't think so. I don't think they've actually got it in a savings account.
Mayor, I can't answer that question. We don't reconcile
Well,
the bank
you need
account
some
or anything.
investigating.
We need to get this straightened up, because that is a fund of the town, and it's just like our Parks and Rec Department or our Public Works or Public Utilities. It was set up as a fund of the town, and I certainly agree that it should be set up just like the Oak Island Land Trust as a separate 501c3. And if they need help filling out the forms, let us know, because I can do that. I've done it before, I'll do it again, and we can set them up, and the council name that board, and then let them run that 501c3 by themselves. And whatever excess funds are existing, transfer that over to the 501c3 as an initial contribution to get them started.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
That fund owes the town $3,600.
We'll proceed with trying to collect that money.
Figure out how to do that, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Madam Mayor and Commissioners, just to continue on with, like I said, we'll hold off the health benefits discussion until we get to Sarah. Someone asked last time about Bill Smith, the park cost for trade work to redo the HVAC and the plumbing to eliminate the basement, and also the cost for fill and crawl space. We have some very rough estimates on this, basically about $28,000 to do the work to eliminate the basement, maybe have a 2 or 3 foot crawl space, and redo all the HVAC, electrical and plumbing to keep that building in shape. So, I mean, if the board would like us to add some in the budget for this and decrease our allotment for reserves, we can, and proceed on from there. One thing we didn't have in here too, if this kind of work, I still probably have, like to do a little bit of engineering, so if you throw another $2,500 into that, it's probably about $30,500 to get this work done.
We don't refer us to a place in the book, please.
This is not in the book.
Okay.
This is not in book because
Also for you to approve or disapprove for that work
I'm
to be
asking on
done.
this, if you want us to put it in the budget, we will, but this came up during the last discussions about Bill Smith Park.
It did.
And so that's what we're addressing, but no, it is not in any budget at this point.
Okay.
I would like to see it in the budget, because I think if we don't do that, we're gonna lose that building altogether. That's, to me, and I've been doing this stuff that looks like a low number.
That's what I'm thinking it is too, and that's why I kinda wanna get engineer bidded out, and, but it does look kinda low.
I agree, I think it should be in the budget too.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
great
We'll
Bible
proceed on
building.
that.
All right, unanimous consensus, put that in the budget.
We'll do that. We've already talked about animal control, so you've taken that. Okay, so next slide.
Before we go to the next slide, we've been in session for an hour and 15 minutes. We'll take a 10-minute break right quick. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam-
Holloman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councilors. On the next slide, continuing on as far as the calling your attention to some of the major things under water fund administration. Just to let you know, there's $68,000 going into reserve for future projects in water in this particular budget. So that's the water fund administration. Under water fund maintenance, there is a $85,000 backhoe expenditure in there.
Before you leave that department, I got two questions.
Okay.
Number one, under buildings and grounds, why did we jump from 1,000 to 10,000? And under maintenance and repair equipment, we jumped from 4,500 to 15,000.
Where you at, Jeff?
Under water maintenance? Under
I can answer on the buildings and grounds. This number in the past has been under, I believe, 10, facilities maintenance has been under 10,500. And all the expenses, say for, to repair a fire station, what have you, for example, the captain of the fire department was not responsible for whatever cost it did to repair. He would just charge it back over to John Michaud's department at that time. And they weren't really accountable for the cost, so they didn't care how much it cost them, because they knew they weren't paying for it out of their budget. So Tim and I've tried to set it up where repairs and maintenance for building and grounds is going back to the department, so they're responsible for their own building repair cost.
But do they have this much repairs that need to be done?
Yes.
Okay. That's my question. We didn't put it in there so they say, well, we gotta spend this money to get something done.
No. They probably have more than that. They probably
Okay.
say they could use 30 in there.
Okay.
And just to follow up on what David said, even though George might do some of the work he does for that department is charged back to that department.
Right.
Okay. And then what about the repair to equipment? What is that?
That went from
4,500
45
to
to
15,000?
15,000. See on the justification on that. Looks like they're doing some work on their handheld meter reading units, the wands, and other utility special equipment. That's in the justification line item, so if you need a little bit more, I'll try to get more information on that. But if they're redoing all their handheld meter units, that does get to be expensive.
Okay. In the tap maintenance and water system, 140 to 175?
140, 175. Is that still in the 3720 line item?
4,800.
It's,
On this one, Dave said estimated past experience plus installation of 2 valves, installation of replacement of 8 hydrants, installation of electronic meters and transmitters.
okay,
And he says tap installation has picked up.
okay.
Now, the tap
Tap,
installation,
TAP, I thought they were saying tap.
tap installation on that, there would be some offset from tap fees in the revenue to offset that expense.
Yep.
Right.
And that probably came from creating that new application for tap on parcels that had been separated out. We just did that a couple months ago.
Right. We're accounting for them better and finding them.
Pardon?
We're accounting for them and finding them. You know, I say we, but the utility department, because some of them were getting them and not being charged.
Tim, this $85,000 for the backhoe, is this replacing a backhoe or adding a backhoe? Or what?
Replacing the backhoe.
The one we have now is just worn out.
That's my assumption now. I don't have the hours. David, you got anything to add on that? So yes, that's correct. All right. Also, interesting here, when you start talking about positions, we're right now looking at, we have 2 part-time meter readers and a full-time. Dave's looking at making all the meter readers part-time, and then he'd also like to have a net addition of a half position to have another full-time utility maintenance mechanic. So basically, this is a net increase of half a position to do this. So that's what's in the budget right now.
To make it all part-time,
All the meter readers will be
all
part-time.
meter readers part-time, and one
Full-
half.
One full-time utility maintenance mechanic. It's basically another $22,000 a year in salaries to add that half-time position. But when Dave was telling me, at one time he was trying to do maybe make a part-time meter reader and part-time mechanic, but that's just not worked well in the past, so that's why they're looking to have one full-time utility mechanic. And the way he's trying to achieve that is by decreasing the meter reader, one of the full-time meter readers down to part-time, so they'll all be part-time. I think now we have, all the meter reader positions are full right now, or about, okay, just filled.
And they'll be able to complete the duties of reading all the meters if they're just 3 part-time people?
Correct. Now, one thing too, not for this budget discussion, but for next year, I think we should look into switching out to all radio reads. And, but like I said, that's for a 16, 17 discussion. That's not for a 15, 16.
Don't go there.
It saves a lot of time in meter reading and that type of thing. So the reason we're not discussing in depth, we don't have all the figures yet to show you the cost-wise and benefits. Oh, and I
So
mentioned,
just so I'm clear, because all the meter readers will now become part-time, there was one full-time position that now is going to be a new full-time person in his department, but it's actually kind of a half-person increase because of the way you're handling it.
exactly, yes.
But it is a new
It is a new full-time position.
full-time position.
That's right.
A new, or different full-time position.
That is correct.
And that name of that position is,
Utility Maintenance Mechanic 1.
okay.
And we have that position in our maps or all of our, okay. Okay.
It would allow them to have two full crews to put the taps in.
A 3-man crew, 3-person crew. All right, okay, and also, we didn't mention last time, but a town electrician to be included half in water and half in general fund building maintenance. Now, this doesn't require any additional funding because we're spending funds now to contract all our electrical work out. And so basically what happens is you'll have 2,000 hours worth of work available versus 328 at the same cost. So there's no change to the budget, but you'll see a position, but as I mentioned, there's really no net change in cost. So I won't say there's any cost savings. There's no net change in cost, just an increase in available hours to do work. So we'll have an on-call electrician then, which is very beneficial to the town. Licensed electrician.
So this will be a town employee instead of a contracted service
Correct.
for net 0 cost.
That is correct. If
Okay,
that
so
goes
that's-
good, we might use up more material, so I have to watch that because when he's here all the time, we might have a little bit of increase in materials, but it's hard to project that. right
Okay,
now.
direct me to so I was just writing down the increase of a half a position in the top line under water maintenance.
Yes.
But now we are actually adding
We made that utility maintenance account, I think the vacant, we bumped that up to 32 for full-time, David, isn't that what we did to do that? So that the vacant position is the one we're talking about.
So you're just filling the vacant position, right?
But we made it full-time.
Made it full-time.
So the vacant position is under utility maintenance mechanic, and that's what you're gonna
That's-
call this person.
But it was only part-time, we'd only had salary for part-time before.
Yeah, yeah. Could I just make an aside comment here? I see holiday bonus on all these when it refers to employees. That's a Christmas bonus.
Correct.
Let's call it what it is.
We just kept that same from last year, the
I understand.
225. It didn't change anything, just left it in there and carried it over.
you're saying
I
it's a
think you're
Christmas
increasing
bonus.
it by $25.
Oh,
It's been in the budget at 225.
Yeah, this is the
Oh.
same number.
Gross up,
the bonus is actually 200 that the employee
Right.
receives, but we budgeted in the past 225 to cover the FICA and all the taxes. So the employee
Yeah.
receives.
I forgot. So they don't, get penalized on taxes, yeah?
They get a gross of 225, but they have to take out
Right.
taxes, so they get a check of $200.
Correct.
They have to do that by law
Right, oh, yeah.
on any
I
compensation.
just,
Yep.
first we've heard of it.
Like I said, that's nothing new. We
Yeah,
try to
this
keep it
was
the
in there
same as
before.
last year, so we did not add it back or anything like that.
Okay, I know I'm essentially dense today, so I'm still confused about, I thought we were adding a utility maintenance position, but that's different than the town electrician?
That is different from town electrician.
so-
We don't actually show the town electrician in this budget yet. We will show it on the change, and you'll see a decrease in contract services in both water and general to make that difference up. So you'll not see any additional monies for that electrician. You'll see some monies move around to make that happen, but it's not included in this
Okay,
draft.
right, what we're looking at right now, we're not seeing that.
That's correct.
Okay,
It's all that showing up in their contracted services, right?
That's correct. And we'll take monies out of that to make this happen.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, if we get this guy, he's the same one that works on our equipment now.
One thing,
He's familiar with everything that he's gonna be working on.
he's actually more than an electrician. He's also a pump control, pro pump and that type of thing. So he knows all our sewer kind of equipment. And so he is better, I say better, better than just a general electrician. So,
Dave says he does now do repairs to electrical type systems that no other employee that we have can do. So he'll hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So we actually have enough of that kind of work to do to have a full-time person.
yes, sir. All right, if I'm moving on, under the next big ticket item, wastewater treatment, repair and maintenance of systems. If you're looking at wastewater treatment, you'll see there's about $250,000 for the operational year for upkeep. And so that is all the recommended repair and maintenance that we're supposed to do, and that is an item that's not going to go away anytime soon.
And while we're there, where are we at with a meeting with Airvac?
When are we meeting with Airvac? They were supposed to be here in June at some point, so I need to check that again. I know Siemens came to talk about the SWRF, but I don't think Airvac has been yet.
I'd like to note real quick, for everybody, thank you to Lee Hennett from the pilot for getting this to me. On May 13th, Brunswick County issued 2015 series revenue bonds, and part of those revenue bonds were used to pre-fund the Northwest Water Treatment Plant and the 2008A revenue bonds for the $40,000 to build the Southwest Brunswick Sanitary District. Now, they had net savings of in excess of $2.9 million by doing it that way. It's kind of like what we're doing with our bonds.
That's the same thing. we're doing.
$1,348,159 of the savings will be to the benefit of the town of Oak Island to reduce sewer capacity fees related to the expansion of the west facility. So they should be getting the specifics of that, and it will help a bit.
Yep.
It's not gonna be a big hit, but it's gonna help a bit.
We have not reflected that decrease in the current budget.
Well, they
because at that
haven't-
point,
it-
we
they
didn't really,
haven't
we
given
don't,
all
at this
the-
point,
all
we
the
still don't really
specific-
know the real, we know approximately, but we don't know what the number's gonna be.
And they just approved that on May 13th, so they'll be getting you all the specifics. Thank you, Lee.
And then following up, we talked about the maintenance. Also, there's $350,000 to repay the accommodations tax. And that $350,000, I think, if I understand from David, that's going to continue for the next 10 years,
Mhm.
or 9 years after this
9 years.
fiscal year.
I thought it was set for 7 years.
10,
10? Okay.
it was $3.5 million.
So that's an interest-free loan we loaned ourselves.
We can do that interest-free?
Well,
Yeah.
the terms of it, were
Well, sometimes you
be
can't.
paid back based on the earnings credit that the town of Oak Island now gets on the market with our
Okay.
shares, and that's .006, I believe,
Okay.
at this time. So we could charge ourselves interest if we wanted to,
Well, but we don't. And
for that amount.
so we don't have to, by IRS regs, we don't, okay.
All right, the next thing, just to highlight, Public Works, we're transferring to reserve $43,606, so that's, to go into for future projects. Next item under solid waste fund, we have a beach trash recycle truck, and this is to get away from the truck that goes out on the beach and go to a street truck to pick up the recycles on the street side. I'm hoping you guys are familiar with that. John says he's talked about it for some time, so that's where that truck, the amount's going for.
Where is that? What's that?
That's under solid waste, beach
Oh,
trash
there it is, okay.
recycle truck. All right, now the golf course is next in line. And as we mentioned, I think we alluded to last time, $28,000 for a specialty lawnmower. I believe this is a rotary with a wide cut deck. And so that's what, as part of the 2-year plan, the golf course says they need for maintenance. And so that's where that lawnmower comes in.
Counselor Weingoff, what is the deficit at the golf course? We normally every year transfer funds from the accommodations tax to,
130. If you look on their revenues now for the golf course, I've got in there 136,6051 to balance their budget.
so we would be transferring that from the accommodations tax. Weren't we going to discuss taking that out of the accommodations tax? It's a golf course. It doesn't help the beach. Should that be paid out of the general fund instead of the accommodations tax?
I think so. I think it ought to come out of the rec department as part of their,
Put it under the rec departments. And I have to admit, I feel very strongly that we should do that. I mean, to me, it's ludicrous that we deplete our accommodations tax for a golf course.
I agree. Been trying to get it done for 3 years.
That's a good discussion, but if the mayor and board doesn't mind me asking, add a little bit to that. Whatever little bit of room we have in the general fund budget will go away if we try to accommodate all that 136 or accommodate a portion of it.
Well, let me ask why it needs to be 136,000, please, because under the estimated revenue for 2014-15, it's 50,000. And I thought that the golf course was becoming more profitable, or we were in the red less and less, and then as of this year, when you say the estimated revenue at the end of this fiscal year, that would be the estimated transfer from the accommodations tax of 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now we're back up to budgeting a potential transfer of 136,000.
When I take the grounds maintenance from 38,501, their budget.
Wait, where are you?
Okay, it's going to be right behind that revenue sheet you're looking at. Their budget, they've requested in grounds maintenance 191,112. Then under operations on 38,620, that's 81,539. So when they give me some idea of what their memberships, cream fees, merchandise sales, to make up that gap, I've got to transfer the money from some fund to pay for those expenses.
But how did it go from 50 to 136,000?
50 is what I said when I was looking at estimated, just what I think we may have to do before the end, and it doesn't look like it's going to have to be that much
For
this year.
2015? But for 2016, you're thinking it's going to be 136,000? What's the difference?
Well, as you'll see, year-to-date revenue, I haven't transferred any money to them because they still have a positive cash balance on their fund. So I haven't had this transfer. And it may be that we don't have to do the 136. I'm hoping we don't. But I had to put it in there to get the budget to balance.
And I realize if that was transferred to the general fund, just like in the rec department, like our rec center, I realize that's ad valorem taxes. But One of the things Counselor Painter wants to discuss is taxes for a beach fund, and here we're gonna reduce it by another possibly $136,000 for our accommodations tax that could be used for the beaches. It just doesn't make sense to me to take that from the accommodation tax. The grand total over the years since we took over that golf course has been over $750,000. And if we had that money in our accommodations tax, what could we do with it?
In the 2014-15 budget, you budgeted $101,841 transfer.
Yeah.
And it's just coming in a lot less.
Well, it's come in less because they do still have the money in the bank, in their fund. Now, once that fund disappears, then I'll have to start transferring money to meet their expenses.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping, like I said, we won't have to transfer any before the end of June 30th, 2015.
Yeah.
And then this 136, if they do have cash left, then I won't have to use all of this 136. And hopefully,
But it should be a department of the general fund.
If that's as the board's direct, we can proceed with that policy. Just be aware that next year we either need to do some kind of municipal service district for the golf course, or, I was looking at the budget and I was very positive that we could go a couple of years without a tax increase, but if you transfer this amount of burden onto the ad valorem taxes, then next year we're looking at some kind of tax increase. I say 15, in the 16-17 budget, I think we'll have to sharpen our pencils, but we're possibly looking at a general fund operation tax increase next year. So we can do it, because I understand the priority is the accommodations tax should go toward beach nourishment, because if everybody's seen, we need as much funding as possible to make that happen. But I'm saying it's gonna place an extra burden on the ad valorem. Just want you to make aware of that, not a problem in doing
We
that.
just saved $90,000 today, right?
We did do that, so that should, or 83, depending on who goes to the county.
And I think you'll find, Mr. Harleman, over the past over the past 4 years, at least, there has been a significant decrease in the deficit of the operations there at that golf course. It has gone down quite a bit, so I don't think you'll see in the 16-17 budget a large amount that's gonna have to be used from the general fund.
Well, also, we have had the condition of the course has deteriorated, which has resulted in some of the memberships declining.
Yeah.
And perhaps some of the play declining. So,
and I believe that was part of the concern of raising the green fees. You know, they don't want to run away what people they have by upping the fees too much.
But I think the council has approved increased expenses to bring it up to par. And once they do that, it's almost a one-time shot, and they won't have to do it in future years. Get those greens back in the condition, the right kind of grass, the mower, buying the mower.
Right,
It's an
exactly.
ongoing process.
Yeah.
It is an ongoing process.
As long as we own it.
and just for the clarification for the public, I believe that what you're doing, what you have done is you've put all of the operations under the Parks and Rec as of,
Correct.
that'll start July 1,
Correct.
so,
Yeah, because they were kind of serving two masters. You know, one department goes this way, one would say,
Yeah.
let's put them together.
And what we'll do, we'll leave the department numbers the same, they'll just be Rebecca's concern. So we're not gonna change the numbers, she inherits the department.
While we're there and talking about new mowers and all that, the company we have in here doing our grass cutting now, I haven't been too impressed with them, because a lot of the beach streets where our people used to take care of it were neat, clean, cut. Now, grass grows up about this high before anybody comes through. And if you can't see me, it's about 2 foot. But can we also maybe look at somebody who can take care of the golf course that may save us money,
We can.
instead of buying equipment and having everybody trying to keep up with it?
we did look at that
Yeah.
once. We
I thought that
did.
was in the RFQ.
We did last year.
Yeah,
Well,
think
I
we
don't believe
did
it was last year, but we did look at it, and the contract that they came forth with was
Kind of-
beyond our, what we would do it
Yeah.
in-house.
It was exponentially higher. And, Mr. Holloman and Councilor Weinkoff, if you'll check with the guys that are maintaining the side rights-of-way and so
Right.
forth, I believe they're contracted to mow the side streets. They do Oak Island Drive, Beach Drive, Yacht Drive. They do the main thoroughfares in the season, in the summer, about once a week or so. But the side streets, they only do them twice a year. They do them once in the spring, once in the fall. So council might want to look at what they would charge to do it more often, do it every quarter instead of twice a year.
I'm just looking at the appearance of the island.
They are-
Somebody's coming on, it looks
The
bad.
side streets, I mean, the grass is tall, and those little
What it
sand
costs
spurs.
Additionally
Yeah.
to do that.
So maybe look at what they would charge to do it 4 times a year instead of 2 times a year on the side streets.
Now, I guess before we get off this and move on the golf course, is there consensus among the board, they want us to make that a general fund expenditure?
Yes.
I know these 3, yes, yes. That got, you might as well say yes, the other 4 already have. Sure.
Okay, that's,
Councilor
okay.
Scott said sure.
Y'all make it tough on a manager, save money and spend. All right, okay, moving right along, in the accommodations tax fund, just to let you know, there's $769,000 going to reserve for future beach projects. The other expenditure out of there this year is $26,000 for a UTV, which is very similar to an ATV, except it has a dump body on it, that type thing. This is gonna be used to pick up tents and do other work on the beach. It's a better, more effective vehicle to get out there instead of trying to drive a truck. It does less damage to, or less potential damage to turtle nests, et cetera. So that's kind of why that vehicle's in there. And it's strictly used for beach purposes, so that's why it's listed under accommodations.
You may want to mention where we struck out some of these costs with sidewalks. and
Oh,
dredging.
yes, and also, we did change some things as far as, sidewalks and bike paths. There was no project for that, so we, eliminated that and put that money into, reserve for beach nourishment. I couldn't find it, from talking to different staff members where we had ever taken on a sidewalk project, that type thing, so we moved that money to reserves.
Where are we talking about? I was writing somewhere
Uh,
else.
under revenues, expenditures, accommodations tax,
420.
we took off, and I don't think you don't have it corrected in your copy yet, but, under 45, 420, 4200, we left in repair beach access walkways, but if you go down to, the 4th one from the bottom, sidewalks and bike paths, we took that down to 0. We also took, the dredging project and Lockwood Folly dredging down to 0, and that money's gonna go down to, 9903 reserve for fund balance. So instead of being 461, that'll be close to, like I said, 769,000.
You lost me.
Plus the ones 136,651 that you see going to the golf course, that'll disappear also out of their fund and go up to recreation.
And that's what you just said today, so, yep.
So we did spend $101,841 in this fiscal year.
We did not.
Or
No,
we,
haven't.
We did not.
It's
did not.
0, right.
It still showed up under estimated expense, but, Dave and I looked at it, there was no project there, so I'm not sure why it was listed there in previous years, but no, we have not spent that money and will not spend that money.
So you're gonna take that out, you're gonna zero that out.
Exactly.
And what was the other one you were gonna zero out?
The, Lockwood Folly dredging and the, dredging project, both the 25,569 and the 60,000, all that's gonna move down to reserve for fund balance for accommodations.
okay, now, are you saying that you don't think we're gonna have to dredge the Lockwood Folly this year, in our next fiscal year?
That's what I'm saying right now, that we don't have that.
You might need to check with the Corps. Traditionally, every year, our share of that dredging is about $25,000 to $30,000. The state pays 50%, the county pays a quarter, and Holden and Oak Island each pay 12.5%.
So you
And
say
that's, you'll see that quite often in our budget, so you might need to check before you zero that one.
okay. Well, if we put it in reserve, it could have moved up, but we'll check and make
Okay.
sure.
And while we're talking about the accommodations tax fund and beach funds and so forth, our West End Beach Renourishment project that we just completed, This past week, Oak Island had the very first sea turtle nest in the southeast states. And also, there was a turtle nest that was laid at around 27th Place West, or, no, excuse me, 67th Place West, in the new
Then you do.
new
New
areas that we
project
had to
area.
be. If we had not done that, that sea turtle would not have been able to get into enough dry sand to have laid a nest because it was eroding all the way up to the road. So we made him an area, her an area, so she could lay eggs.
Right along.
I know, but it's a feel-good thing, but it worked. That project was good.
Okay, and the last two items, the capital reserve fund, the total amount for this year is go 293,706, and where most of that is reserved for wastewater and stormwater, those two line items. So that just goes into reserves for future years. And then, as we already discussed, beach preservation is a pass-through that we're hoping to eliminate and not have that pass-through anymore. And let's see. Now, we still haven't covered personnel, but did you want to go over outside agency funding? I had that on there because I think there were several counselors who wanted to kind of review that. I don't know if anybody has any comment, Madam Mayor. I'll just wait for those at this time for the outside agency funding.
I think at the last meeting, council wanted to see all the applications because they wanted to consider whether to, I think the only ones that were in question really was the chamber, whether to do 3 or 5 on that. And then the feral cats, whether to do 1,000 or 0 on that. And I think they already had consensus to 0 on the airport.
Yep, I did that one.
And did, Mr. Gary Anderson, he got you the application for the Vietnam Veterans Wall? Okay, so that can be included at the 1,000, okay.
And I believe we had one other request, but Carol mentioned a request.
I'm sorry I didn't get here soon enough to make copies, and did anybody ever find this except me?
I seen what was put on the email today
Uh-huh.
or yesterday.
Well, I guess then it only came to me, and I obviously,
I got that letter.
What's it about?
Well,
They
it's-
want outside agency funds, the Brunswick
it's
Rescue.
called the Brunswick Search and Rescue Team.
I didn't know anything about
And
it.
they are out of supply, and they, well, Danny maybe can explain it, but they do serve 3 counties, and this letter that was sent in January said that they were asking for a donation of any amount. Their gear is well-worn and will need to be replaced, and that means $350 radios, sturdy boots at about $200 a pair, and their regular uniforms and shirts, and that runs about $350 per person. That doesn't count radios and compass or backpack gear. But anyway, Danny, talk about what they do. I never had heard of them.
It's the Brunswick
Yeah, they're
County
good.
Search and Rescue. It's primarily a volunteer group that does dog. They have search dogs, bloodhounds, they have air scent dogs, several different varieties, and the people supply their own dogs and train them, but this is the other stuff. And I didn't get that letter either. I've worked with them some, I've trained with them some. I know our water rescue trained with them at one point, taking the air scent dogs out into the waterway where they would pipe cadaver scents through pipes, and it would bubble up, and the dogs would actually know where the cadaver scent was coming up. That's the extent of my training with them.
I've
Never
been
a member of them, but I've seen them work. They're pretty impressive.
I've been with them several times in the past 15 years, and like Danny said, they pay for the training of their own dogs. They're volunteers, and the sheriff's office calls on them for people that are lost, or when they, for goodness sakes, out in the county sometimes, if somebody runs and they want to track them down, sometimes they use them. In the marshes, if someone is lost, if someone's lost in the waterways. and they can do, tracking and cadaver.
Now, when we had that well, Jim, when was that? We went down there where we had the kids lost behind the wreck.
Yeah, that's right, the two kids.
They had them getting ready to mobilize the,
They had
search
them
and
ready to
rescue.
come
They were
down.
getting it, the process in play to get
Yeah.
them to come up, but it was just a little lead time on getting them.
I'd rather give the money to them than the cats.
I'd rather do both. It's only $1,000, Counselor Scott.
I think it needs to come from the county.
Pardon?
This money?
It come from the county.
Well, I was gonna see if I could find out if the county was funding it. Maybe we could just hold it open and just see if we,
Maybe we could ask the county how much they fund and maybe ask some of the others, see if the other towns, it looks to me like they're just asking for whoever can give them a little bit to do it.
And I think I dropped the ball on, if you'll make me a copy of that, I will call them and let them know that they need to send an application in through David, and they need to send us full information on their operations and their financials for the past couple of years.
That
Okay.
sounds good. And just a request by staff, Madam Mayor and Board, if after you contact this agency, we're trying to get the final budget together, so I think if that'd be a good idea for a cutoff date. So let's just, if this can be the last agency we consider, that would be fantastic.
I will get in touch with them this weekend, and we can have this, if council wishes, we can have the information from them. I'll tell them we need all of it by June the 2nd for the first public hearing.
We actually need it way before then. We need
Way
it
before then.
by May 29th. We need to know later next Friday.
That's next week, okay.
well, should we get a consensus on whether we would like to fund this group pending the correct information being submitted?
And what amount?
What would you say, Danny?
Gosh, I don't know what,
Well, let's,
where to even
How
start
much were they
at.
asking for, Carol?
they just said a donation of any amount.
Why don't we split the, $4,000 for Brunswick Shores Radio Club, give them $2,000 and give this organization $2,000?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Counselor, Medlin, I just like, I think the Brunswick Shores needs almost all that 4,000. I was gonna suggest maybe
But
if you cut the, chamber
They
from
do,
five
but
to 3, you could use that 2,000 from the chamber and do that. You cut the chamber.
Cut the chamber from 5 to 3.
Yeah, we already cut the
Go
chamber.
ahead and give them the 4 and give Brunswick Search and Rescue 1. And you're still, yeah.
Cut the chamber to
If
how
you
much?
cut the chamber from 5,000 to 3,000, that cuts the manager recommendation down by $2,000. And keep everything else, I mean, take out the airport, but add $1,000 to Brunswick Search and Rescue, and you're still $1,000 less than what was listed here.
Okay, I'd like to ask another question. The Lower Cape Fear Hospice, you know, we budgeted $2,500 last year, and none of that money's ever been expended. Were they contacted? What did they say?
That I don't know.
Kathleen contacted them,
Kathleen
but
contacted all of them to let them know.
Do they normally contact us to get the money, or do we just expend the money
Most all
once we've
the-
approved it?
Most of them will send a letter or request just saying, you know, we would like to have our funding that was approved in advance of your budget.
Well, just on that same kind of topic, when I was looking through the agency requests under Brunswick Family Assistance, it says that they did not get their money yet, but in the packet, it says that they received their money on February 6th.
Is there any way that we can
Budget.
streamline this process? I mean, they had to sit for their applications for the council to approve the money to give to them, but they don't understand that they still not gonna get that money until they send a request for payment. So could we not somehow streamline this so they don't have to go through jump through so many hoops? If the council approves the money, then send the money to them. Don't make them come back to you again. Why are we doing it that way?
we can do it that way, but, and I don't know how they've done it in the past here in Oak Island, but I've always been associated with, even though it's been approved, they have to send us an invoice. It keeps them more accountable by doing that, but we'll do whatever council directs, but that's,
I like that idea. We approve it, and when they, as they need it, they send us an invoice, and that's what we get. Why are we budgeting money to, or why have we even got it in the budget for some of these that didn't request anything?
that was my being over cautious and not wanting to not have it available in case they came in, not knowing the history of how long they've been there.
Well, now, the Vietnam Veterans Wall, they
I
had,
understand that one,
in
but
the, in the meantime, they had issued a
Oak
request.
Island Senior Center, they didn't request anything, and we've got $1,500 in there for them.
Now,
So they
they're the
did
one,
request?
We,
Well, it
He-
says
that
the
was one
agency
of-
has not requested funding at this time.
yeah, that was one of the, we'd put it in the same as the prior year, but that's what my little A out to the side says, we have not formally heard from him, but he called me today and
Okay,
said that
well, that's why I asked the
he
question.
was requesting that.
Okay, I thought
They were
they had sent it.
requesting 1,500?
That's what he told me, the same as last year.
I don't have a problem with funding them, but I just, if they've called and requested, I'm good.
Can we, would it run into Kathleen's time too much if we ask the Brunswick Family Assistance and call them, and then call Lower Cape Fear Hospice? And then the Beautification Club,
That's a
you know how
brand new
bad
one
they need
this
that
year.
money.
That's a
Oh,
brand
yes.
new one.
It's a brand new one
Oh,
this
it's
year.
brand
They never
new,
requested
okay.
before.
They need it, obviously.
Okay.
They said they did.
Oh,
We-
okay.
and
We're
we
talking about the
definitely
ones that
wanna give
haven't
it to
gotten their
them.
money this year. God, on the other ones, the Hope Harbor Emergency Teen Shelter, Fourth of July Festival,
They just need,
have they not sent in the,
Nope.
you expect them to by the end of the fiscal year?
I would have hoped they would have. But, they're, like I said,
well, is Kathleen going to contact
I
them?
believe she's contacted all of them.
Okay.
Already?
we can get Kathleen to, send me something, I sent you to say what they said, but she's contacted everybody
She's
since the
contacted
last
all of
meeting.
them.
Okay. Well,
I'll look for their contact information, I'll call them myself and say, look, do you understand the process? That's usually the problem.
but if Kathleen's already
this-
contacted.
I know, but they sometimes don't understand. I know what you're saying.
All right. I think we've got the changes down for the outside agency funding, so we'll have that in there.
What do we decide on the cats?
We're gonna leave the cats and put in Brunswick Search and Rescue and reduce the chamber by 5,000 to 3,000.
No.
Okay, you don't wanna
No,
do
I
the
didn't say
cats.
that. No, no one else said that.
I thought we approved the cats, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm jumping
Can we
the
get a
gun.
consensus on the cats?
Well, Feral Cat Society, would you
No.
like to fund the 2,000, Counselor Weinkoff?
No.
No? Counselor Painter?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Medlin?
I don't know.
I say 2,000, but it's only in there for 1,000.
Well, let me just say this. I questioned this the first year I was on the council, what it was for, and I was against it until I understood what it was for and the purpose in it. The purpose in it is that money is used to spay and neuter the feral cats and to keep them from multiplying, so we have less cats as time goes along. I'm not real sure that works.
It's impossible.
I think we've still got more cats than we've ever had. However, at least they're trying to do something. So I'm gonna be in favor of it.
At $1,000?
Yes.
Got 2 more votes.
So this means,
Said no.
what you said, so this means I'm
You're the
deciding.
vote. Come on,
Well,
Danny.
I'm just gonna have to say no. I gotta put my foot down.
Okay.
So 0.
Yeah. I'll send them a donation.
That felt good.
All right, we'll get that. All right, thank you, Mayor and councilors. Now, the last thing we have is just to go over the employee health insurance premium. So I'm gonna ask Sarah to come up this time and kind of go through a very brief presentation on that. And that is the last part of the budget item we have for you this afternoon, other than any questions.
Are you going to provide us copies of your notes here?
I can. What I'll do is, once we do the changes in the budget, we'll do a memo showing the changes.
Yeah.
So yes, so we'll do a.
Okay.
And the net effect on the funds, that,
I know.
Hello, council. All right, so this is just some brief history about the premium information that was requested from last meeting. So number of full-time employees, we've reduced from 155 in 2005 to currently 113. So we have staff, lower staff that are providing increased services. We also have increased savings the town is recommending by discontinuing short-term disability, by adjusting the dental plan, and then, like we talked about before, moving to the state medical plan. Just a little bit of history also. In 2014-15, the core benefits that we offered were medical, dental, short-term disability, and group life insurance. And then also premiums for employees are paid at 100% by the town. And in 14-15, the town elected to keep the tiered structure in place and to keep that tiered structure the same as it was in 13-14.
And you're going to go over that. Oh, here we go.
Yes. And here's the tiered structure that was approved. So this has been the same tiered structure in 13-14 as it was 13-14 and 14-15. So where the town would pay 60% for employees that are less than $30,000, and then the town share would be lower as the salaries for the employees were higher. And then I put in a grid there that showed you how many employees were in that different tier, so you know what kind of changes, how many employees that would affect. So in that lowest tier where the town pays 60%, there's only one employee that's using dependent coverage, employee spouse. So there's one employee that the town is paying an additional share. You'll see that first column is the employee only. Obviously, the town is paying 100% of all of those people that are in that category, the employees. And then obviously, as you see the salaries increase, you'll see the different, where people fall in a different dependent in the tiered structure. Any questions yet?
Well, when, I guess, the thing that I must have been remembering that happened, I guess, was that we must have phased down the two higher tiers and left the two lower tiers the same or something, because I looked in my notes and I couldn't find it, but anyway, it is what it is, and that's what it is right now.
That is what it is currently, yes.
Confusing, like on greater than
Yes.
60,000, it just struck, there's 3 employees that are employee only.
Mm-hmm.
But you got 1 with children and 1 with spouse and 3
So
with
that's the
family. That's
total.
5.
No,
3,
total
4, 5,
employees
6,
are
7, 8. 8, there's 8 total. So there's 3 that are employee only, 1 additional one that has employee children,
okay.
1 that's employee spouse, and 3
So
that are
less than
employee.
30,000, there's 20 employees, but one of them is spouse. Okay, okay.
All right, so this is how the money shakes out for employees in the current structure, the 2014, 2015 salary tiers. This is what they're paying on a monthly basis, where they fall in their salaries. And then if you were to keep the tiered structure the same, just for comparison purposes, since there are so many factors to compare, try to keep it as simple as possible with it being that tiered structure where it can be quite confusing. If we went the state health plan and your current tiered structure stayed the same, this is how the grid would shake out. So you would see some of those employees decrease in their monthly costs. Then you would see some of those employees that are employee spouses increase in their monthly costs. And then you'll see some of those employee family coverages decrease.
Looks like most of them decreased.
Except for employee spouse.
Employee and spouse, it didn't, yeah.
Yep, they're the ones that would see a somewhat significant increase from 100 and, you know, if they're in that middle tier, say for instance, that 30 to 42,000, they would be paying right now $239 a month, and they would go up to $314 a month. So about $75.
If you could retain the tiers.
If the tiers were retained, correct.
And just to insert, you know, Tara's kind of go back and kind of show you where we are and where we're going. And what's proposed is a 40-60 split that's not shown up here and having just one tier, you know, not having the different tiers.
So this would be what it would look like for dental. So dental is a little different. It would start in July as opposed to the state plan, which hopefully is gonna start in January. The dental, we're looking at reducing it. We're looking at going to Assurant. If that is so what the council chooses, it would reduce our costs. It would offer some of the employees better access. I don't know if anybody's had experience with Blue Cross Blue Shield Dental. What happens is when an employee goes and uses Blue Cross Blue Shield Dental, it comes out of their pocket initially and then is reimbursed back through Blue Cross. Blue Cross doesn't pay those claims straight to the provider of dental. Assurant, it would. So that employee wouldn't have that large out-of-pocket expense first and then wait to be reimbursed. And it also allows for a lower monthly cost. It would offer as well a buy-up option where employees could then choose to buy up to a higher level of coverage if that's so. That wouldn't be, provided by the town shares at all, but an employee could have that ability. If they needed additional dental coverage, they could buy up and get an even more Cadillac plan of dental. In the meeting from last time, you had asked to compare to Brunswick County. So I did some Brunswick County and then a couple other little local towns as well. So Brunswick County, now keep in mind they're a self-insured plan, so their plan actually is quite different than ours because they pay all of their claims out of their general fund, out of their coffers. So as where we would pay our premiums to Blue Cross Blue Shield, they pay their premiums to themselves and then pay those claims from there. But they do have an employee monthly premium, so they do ask their employees to pay part of the premium cost for the employees. They don't have spousal coverage, and they do cover employee child at a 50% coverage. So it costs $287 a month for employees to cover employee child there. And again, we're somewhat comparing apples to oranges because their plan is different as well. Everybody's plan's a little bit different. So Carolina Beach has 100% employee coverage, and they cover approximately 50% of dependent coverage. Now, the reason I say 50% is because depending on if it's employee spouse, employee child, or employee family, it varies between that 40 to 50%. So it's about 50% coverage for their dependents. And then the town of Leland does 100% of the employee coverage. They offered me up what they pay. They didn't offer the percentage. But employee spouse are costing them about $290 a month. This is what the employee pays. So they do pay somewhat of the percentage, but they didn't tell me which percentage. But that's what they pay. So reasons to look at possibly doing some type of supplemental dependent coverage is the town has made great strides in lowering the employment costs and the insurance burden by the reductions in force, the restructurings of the health plan, and the elimination of the short-term disability, which we said before is around $26,000. The level of the service that the town provides has not reduced at the same rate that we've reduced our resources or our employees. And then this obviously would act as some retention measures. We have seen some employees leave in the last several months for different employers for better coverage. Two of those reasons I picked Carolina Beach and Leland is that's where we've lost some of our employees too. So it would make a statement to the existing employees that we appreciate their continued loyalty and their performance through the town, and appreciate them stepping up and taking the additional responsibilities with the reduction in force. So with that, I put up here the current tier, but we are recommending a 60-40 tier, which would be 60% employees, 40% town. That would net us about $142,000 in the premiums collected from the town. It would affect employees. 17 of those employees would decrease their tier premium, and 17 would increase their tiers in the tier that they're in. So it would go up, so their premiums would increase, and 21 of those employees would actually decrease in the amount that they pay.
And you're saying we would maintain this structure when we go with the state plan, right?
Yes. So basically adjust to a lower option of dental plan, which would be a cost savings. Eliminate the HRA once the state health plan is implemented, again, another cost savings. Eliminate short-term disability, which is a cost savings. Look into the option of offering vision to employees once the state health plan is implemented. The reason we say that is because our current plan does have vision as a $200 hardware. That's what we would reimburse on our current plan. Going to the state plan, there is no vision piece. The implementation of a vision halfway through the year, say in January, is about $5,000. And then have a simplified tier plan. Like I've said before, having the structured tier plan it can be somewhat confusing for employees, it can be somewhat confusing to administer. And I've had several employees that have come to me that have not taken an increase, because that will bump them by a couple of dollars into the next tier, and then they would have a net loss in the amount that they have for a promotion or something. So it's definitely a unique plan, this tiered plan. I've actually never seen it before. And I've called around, and so, but obviously, at the council's request, we can certainly keep the tiered plan, we can eliminate the tiered plan altogether, we can offer the 60/40 plan.
So, can you, when we read in the paper that the county did away with their
Spousal coverage.
It was only the spousal coverage?
Correct. They have eliminated spousal coverage. And obviously, I'm not at the county, so I can't speak for the county, but one of the main reasons for them to eliminate the county to eliminate spousal coverage is that's their large expense. And since they're self-insured, the largest claims they're paying are related to spouses. Since we aren't self-insured, our claim will stay the same. We pay the same amount regardless if someone goes out and has major hip surgery and has an amputation on their leg. Our monthly premium still stays the same. If you were in a self-insured plan and someone goes out and has an amputation for a leg and it costs you $300,000, you're paying $300,000. Your premium obviously.
But if we had a lot of those type of things, it would affect our,
It would affect our renewal rate in the future.
Well, actually, yes and no. That's why we're going to the state health plan, because if we were with Blue Cross Blue Shield independently, yes, those claims have a tendency to bump up your premiums. By going to the state and having that larger base, it stabilizes it somewhat, and so the claims would have a negligible effect on the state plan.
Right, it'd be more of a ripple versus a wave effect. If we had major claims, and we were not in a large pool, we would see our renewal rates in the year's future 20% and things like that. But thankfully, we've been very healthy, and our renewal rates are staying really great.
Questions, I guess?
Yeah, tell me.
That it?
That's it.
Questions? Okay,
I got a question.
please.
I talked to both y'all about this, and I never did find out the full aspect, but if we decide not to provide dependent health care coverage, we get assessed some type of penalty through the government. Is that correct?
That's if we don't decide to have coverage at all. If we don't decide to offer coverage to our employees at all, that would be by the Affordable Care Act. We'd be in that pay or play. You've heard that on the news, I'm sure, a lot, that scenario where people say pay or play.
What would that penalty be? I'm just curious.
It's based on our salaries, and it's based on our employee numbers, so I'd have to look into that figure in actuality. It would be more than what we're paying in health insurance coverage.
I was just curious as to if it was a $1,000 fine or a
No.
$1 million fine or
Minimum
whatever.
was $2,000 per employee at a minimum.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is you all would recommend the 60/40. That's what you're.
And another thing, just so you know, we're always gonna try to keep healthcare costs at a lower, as low as possible. So if we go with 60/40 now, then in the future, if we have to recommend that employees pay $25 a month, that's one option. If we have to decrease that dependent coverage to 70/30, or if we have to increase the state health, or decrease the state health plan to 70/30. We have options in the next 4 to 5 years to control our rates if we need to. But right now, we are recommending the 60/40 and keep that as long as possible. And keep in mind, we are saving $68,000 this year on going to the state health plan and cutting out short-term disability.
Well, I personally think that's the way to go. The 60/40 plan is the way to go. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Okay, Counselor Weinkoff, 60/40, or, I know last year, you know, we were talking about last.
That takes away from the tier, right, we got
Yeah.
now.
It-
Because
have one
what,
tier
this is what
replaces-
happens when you do the 60/40. The people who are making less are gonna be paying the ones paying more.
Yeah.
The people making the more is the ones gonna be paying less.
Slightly.
And it seems to me the people who are making less money deserves that little bit, no matter how much it is, from the tier plan. I mean, that's just the way I see it. They're already making less money than everybody else.
We're
And
showing
you-
different costs from employees.
If you use the tiered plan, the council could give the manager the discretion if an employee went up into the next tier by just a few dollars, or, you know, by a small percentage, the manager would have the discretion to, when that was.
I would,
Well, I would kind of steer away from that, but now what I would see is, I think a better, if you still want some kind of tier structure, I would do it maybe 40, 60, and 50/50, 2 tiers, and leave it at that, and not try to have, I think that would be a little bit more equitable. Now, catching Sarah on the fly here, so, but I think that would be a better situation. And keep in mind, the employees were looking for it to go away totally this year anyway, and those employees who were, even though lower paid employees will have to pay everything. So everybody still gets a break.
All right, I'm sorry.
What I was saying is, you know, you're talking about the employees who make less pay more, and employees who pay more pay less. Initially, the employees were looking for this to go totally away, where they had to pay everything.
That's right.
So everybody comes out with a benefit on this, even if it is a 1 tier. But if the board wants to go 2, we can, but we still kind of try to get everything, you know, 1 tier is fair, it's the same percentage regardless, and that's kind of what we were looking at, but we can, you know, we can.
Well, right now, we're still paying the lowest, in the lowest tier, the town is paying 60%, is that correct?
that's correct.
One employee.
And with 1 employee, so you were saying potentially, you would say the town would go to a 40%.
Correct. The town would pay 40%.
Well, I just like other people to comment and see where everybody's head is, because, I mean, we pretty much, I know when we were campaigning and we said we were gonna, that was one of the major problems people had in the town, was that, they thought we needed to do away with the dependent coverage. And so we started a phase out, and now we have, as of last year, we extended it for a year beyond the phase out date, the original phase out date. And so I'd just be interested to hear what other people have to say.
And she is right about that. We had a lot of, if you go back and look at the minutes or look at the videos, there was a lot of discussion on that, and the council decided to extend it for 1 more year, because the years before, you had reduced it gradually anyway, I think by 20% from the year before that. So I don't know, that was just that was council's decision last year. Now, it may not, their decisions may have changed by now.
I'm sort of in a mind right now to maybe extend it a little longer.
Well, we know it would only be through, with our existing insurance, only be through the end of the year, right?
Well,
Well, we would keep the tiers in
Keep the
place.
tiers, yeah, but with our, it would be less under the new plan, under the state plan.
That's right, the 60/40 will become the governing policy, and, you know, as Councilor Painter pointed out, I mean, we could always, every year, make this a budget item and make it tied to saving money and how much it's gonna cost.
Sure.
And at such time that it exceeds, you know, we're saving money this year, but at a time it looks like it's gonna exceed, a certain threshold, then we can look at it again. So I would just ask that this be part of the, the board approves or says proceed with the 40/60, when we start a new plan in January, then we just continue that, and every year at the budget, just look at it from that standpoint and do it that way.
Well, that's what would be done anyhow, right? So, yeah.
Counselor Scott? The 60/40 or the tiered or zero, dependent coverage?
No, I mean, if you've got something else out there,
Pardon?
or if you got something else out there.
Or
No,
another plan.
I don't think there's any, I think the 60/40, the tiered or zero is the only ones that we're ever discussed.
And I hear you that the tiers are very, difficult. And it's also making people make, decisions to stay in a salary range that would be, be harmful for them to get a raise. So that's an unintended consequence.
Right.
You could ask them, I mean, like I said, you give the manager discretion to. What you say?
I'm gonna go with the recommendation of the town manager
Okay.
and the human resource person, because this is really complicated. I'm gonna go with them.
You pointing at me?
Yeah, I'm calling on you.
Well, I want to ask you something. Now, I want to reiterate, you're saying that when we go with the state, if we keep this 60/40 or 40/60, whichever way it is, we're going to save money at the end of the day.
Exactly, yes.
You're sure of that?
I'm sure $68,000 is what we
Are we
saved
saving money initially in the first 6 months also and saving
Well,
more?
at the total year, we'll save 68 by the time we finish the 15-16 year. So yes, we'll save that much, and then the
But
following
we're
year,
not
we'll save.
saving in the first 6 months?
Well, the
Well-
first 6 months will depend on because we still have the HRA for the first 6 months. So it'll depend on, we'll save whatever usage we don't use out of that, which is gonna be some. It's hard to gauge exactly how much it's gonna be, but there is definitely gonna be some cost
We're
savings
estimating
there.
to only spend half of the HRA during that first 6 months.
Is that historically what we spend on the HRA? I know we never usually spend it all.
Right, we typically don't spend it all. We budget around 70% usage right now. And we're pretty close to
We
that.
started out at 7, we've cut it to 35.
Right. We've cut to half of that because it's for 6 months. So we're looking at a 35% usage. That's pretty aggressive usage. I'm not gonna say that it's not, because it just depends on when people hit the doctor. If they're gonna go in July, then that's gonna hit the HRA sooner. If they're not going till December or January, that's
Then it won't
great,
affect it
because
at all.
won't affect it at all.
Okay, my second one is, that theoretically, or that employee that's getting ready to get a promotion, but he says, I'm gonna lose my health care, I'm not gonna take the promotion. That's not fair. And I understand what you're saying, Betty, give the manager the ability to deviate, but he said that that's not a good idea, and I agree. We need to have this cut and dried. We don't need to
Because it's hard,
leave the
where's that,
burden on you to do that.
right, it's like, where's the cutoff? $10, $100, $1,000?
And then there's one thing that Tim, you and I, or I'm sorry, Mr. Holloman, that we talked about was when we introduced the new employees, you told me that all but one of those were people that had left and we were replacing, and you said, we got a 10% turnover rate just the other night.
Exactly.
Some people say, well, we can find employees a dime a dozen. Well, I disagree. You got employees and you got good employees, so I'm just gonna shut up, I ain't gonna say no more. I'm going with y'all's recommendation on this. I would like to go with the 40/60 split. I don't like that tiered thing at all, so.
May I ask a quick question? Eliminating the short-term disability, did you look at the experience over the past 5 or 10 years? And we have not had employees that have needed that.
We've had.
In my experience in the corporate world, that was always a great benefit, because normally if they had to stay out of work, it was no more than 90 days, and that short-term disability was a big benefit.
That is a benefit, but as some of the different councils discussed with me, the way the state system works and local government works, you can accumulate your sick days. So you get 12 sick days a year, so over time, people build up sick days, and that becomes your short-term disability. So in the corporate world, you can't carry over your sick days like you can in government. So
Okay.
that's why I feel confident. Now, for somebody who gets hurt in the first 2 or 3 years they work, they don't have as much time, But also, we do have a policy that Human Resource Director suggests people can give them sick time if they would like to help them out. It's voluntary, so, but I see your point. In
We're
corporate
not
world,
hurting the employees on if they just have to stay out of work for 40 days because of an injury.
That's right. Now, they can still, and two, just like this, they can buy their short-term disability at about $30 a month. So it's important for them, for a small sum, $360 a year, they can afford theirs, if they think it's necessary. But we've had a very small usage rate on
Okay.
that short-term disability.
So we offer it to them if they want to purchase it through Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Well, through our
Assurant or-
Assurant, our ancillary product, yes.
Okay, all right, that's cool. As long as it's available to them if they want to buy.
It is
buy
available to
correct.
purchase, and like he said, with the hours, we have employees that have 1,000, 1,500 plus hours in their bank for sick time. So
Okay.
obviously, the newest employees, they have less, but the longer they're here, the more longevity they have. That sick bank goes fairly quickly.
Okay, so council consensus, go with the 60/40, eliminate the short-term disability.
You got it.
Yeah, got it. What else?
Well, Mayor and councilors, we thank you so much. We're gonna take all these changes, and we'll have all these changes for you at the June 2nd in your packet. We'll hand them out ahead of time. So I think we're in great shape. I've enjoyed working with Dave and trying to learn a lot about the Oak Island budget, and so are the rest of the board members. And so as we go along, we'll even fine-tune this budget even better. So thank you.
I wasn't clear, I'm sorry, I wasn't
Before we
clear
adjourn.
on the answer
Wait a minute,
to.
we're not adjourned. Hold on,
Were we
Jim.
saving money or not in the first 6 months?
We're saving money. Now, in the first 6 months, the only thing we save is that 35% on HRA
And the short-term
and
disability.
the short-term disability.
So we're saving, I would say at least 30,000
At least 30 at the first.
the first 6 months.
And one final thing, Mayor, we didn't talk anything about beach nourishment. Do y'all want to talk anything about that before we? Because right now, I don't have anything in beach nourishment for that June 2nd, so if you want something there.
What time are we convening on June 2nd? 6 o'clock?
He wants to
6
have
o'clock?
it
Is that-
thought.
Pardon?
He wants to have it in a book or in a plan by that time.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. If you wanted, if you want to do anything about the tax rate for beach nourishment, perhaps you could get the information together, work with Council Painter. I know she's worked hard on this. And perhaps we could convene an hour or so before the public hearing on June 2nd to review any proposal about beach nourishment tax. How about that? We're convening at 5 o'clock. So why don't we call it a special meeting and a public hearing? And convene the special meeting at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock?
Well, maybe we can, ahead of time, provide our individual thoughts to Tim.
We can do that, and if the only thing we have to add between the 2nd and the 9th is the tax for beach nourishment, that's not gonna cause a lot of ripples in the budget. It just won't have it that night
Yeah.
if we don't have it, but that's, because basically, any revenue is gonna go straight to reserves for beach nourishment, so it doesn't affect but a couple of pages in the actual printout. But I mean, if you wanna meet like an hour early and kinda gel everything before, that's great.
That's fine with me.
Is that consensus, would you like to convene an hour before, or an hour and a half, or 2 hours to bid? An hour? So we will schedule the special meeting and public hearing for June the 2nd. And the purpose of the special meeting on the agenda for the first item would be discussion of possible.
Madam Mayor, I might have one other item for that meeting, so if I
Please.
could just send, I don't know that today, if it's definite or not, so if I could just we'll just call it like you do with a notice,
Correct.
and that way I can list the agenda items at that time.
Okay, then I won't list them right now. Okay.
June 2nd at 5
June
o'clock.
2nd at 5 o'clock, and regardless of whether we're through with our discussions, the public hearing will convene at 6, and then we can
And just so you know, I'll advertise those separately.
okay. Did you have a question, Councilor Kaiser?
Yes, I did. I'm glad you recognized me. I don't know where this come in exactly, but it's the annual $10,000 we pay for fireworks.
Oh, yeah, where is it?
I do not want to pay that, and I don't know. I just wanted to go on the record. I don't think the town should be paying for fireworks. And then, I don't know if we got time to discuss with it now because you're trying to get out of here. The fireworks enforcement, I don't know where we were left with that last year, so perhaps we could discuss that at the next meeting when we come in at 5 o'clock if we have a little time. I would like to talk about the fireworks enforcement.
Perhaps we could ask Chief Edinger. He and Assistant Chief Jordan gave us a great presentation on why it is almost virtually impossible to enforce the no fireworks law, because by the time you get there, there's 10 people, you don't know who set them off, and you can only arrest the one that did. No?
He said he could do it easily, but he wanted the money. He was completely baffled on how to do it without the money.
Without overtime.
Without adding officers.
That was the best recollection I have.
Okay.
He was baffled completely.
I hadn't talked to the chief about this, but I can see they went overtime because he could hire more people. Now, we do have some signs that will go up in June on both the bridges talking about fireworks and so those signs are ready to go up.
Oh, I'm sure that'll solve the problem,
Oh, yeah.
people reading the signs.
I know, but I just want to let you know there's one thing.
I'm gonna get rid of my fireworks tonight because of the signs.
Here's your sign.
Wasn't it great?
All right.
Well, I'll just state my being in favor of the fireworks, and I may not be in favor of spending $5,000 in extra departmental supplies for Fire Station Number 2.
Okay, Counselor Weinkoff.
Add this to it. Lisa knows about this. Volunteer dinner.
Oh, mama.
That was a good one.
We usually have we started it back last year, a dinner for volunteers.
Yeah,
Is it in the budget? If not, we need to look at that too.
I
we
don't,
need to schedule that.
I don't think it's in the budget, but we'll check on it, so.
Only dinner we have is for the fire department.
Pardon?
The only dinner we have in the budget is fire department.
We need to do away with that. Spend that money on fireworks.
Wait a minute. All right. Counselor Kaiser has said that he is not in favor of the firework. Consensus, yes or no? Fireworks.
We ain't even talked about it yet. It's not even.
No.
No.
I just wanna know when we were gonna talk about it.
It's $10,000 and it comes out of the accommodation
June
tax.
the first,
Yep.
you know.
Well, I think we need to let him know the
can
changes,
we
so he
vote
can bring this
today?
back to us June 2nd. No or yes on fireworks? Yes.
Yes.
All right, we got 3 yeses and 2 nos, so leave the fireworks in at 10,000.
Okay.
Would you like to, yay or nay, a consensus on the $5,000 for departmental supplies?
Well, I would like to hear a little bit more specifics on what it's about.
And I'll ask Chief Anselmo. I don't know if he has a lot more specifics than what I gave you this
I'm
afternoon.
against it.
Okay. Everybody else want to wait until we get
Against
some more
5, or
information
maybe just
from
a
Anselmo?
reduced amount, 2,500, 2,000.
Okay.
I'm against it.
Quick
All we do is
question.
bring our own toilet paper when we stop by the fire station.
Paper towels, plastic cut forks. Have we changed few enough of these pages in this book that when you make the changes that council has approved, would you mind printing out just those pages so we can replace them in our books?
What we would suggest is that maybe, once we get those pages ready, that you drop by and Kathleen or Dave or myself will put the new pages in, so so everybody will have the same book, so.
Well, I was thinking while you were talking about having a meeting before the budget meeting, if you could bring your books in, if you could possibly get Kathleen to put the new sheets
Okay,
in.
everybody bring all
Everybody
that.
Bring your book
Why
and
don't
we'll
we
put
just
the
leave our
sheets in.
books with you today?
You want to put my name in my book?
Just put your name in your book,
Put
if
your
you want to
name,
leave it
yeah.
the day, that'd
Everybody
be
write your
fine.
name in your book. All right, children,
Making this complicated.
Yes, God.
I'm gonna leave it right here.
write your name in your book and leave it here.
All right.
And if you have any questions on it in the meantime, you want to look it over, come on up here and you can look at it anytime, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
They may be in Kathleen's office by Monday, just so she'll have them.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion adjourned by Counselor Medlin,
Second.
second by Counselor Scott. All those in favor, and it is unanimous.
Have a safe and happy Memorial